Good afternoon and welcome members of the public, the officers and members of the committee to South Kesteven District Planning Committee on the 8th of August 2024. The time is 1 p.m. I'm Councillor Penny Mills, the Vice Chairman of Planning, and I will be chairing this meeting today. Committee Chair, Councillor Charmaine Morgan, sends her apologies. As far as housekeeping is concerned, I'm not aware of any fire drill taking place today, but if the alarm does sound, please vacate the building via the stairs. The meeting place is outside at the front here. Please can everyone ensure they have their phones turned off or to silent? Thank you. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded and also being live streamed via public on the South Kesteven website. Could you ensure your microphones are turned off when not speaking? And please ensure you don't place your mobile phones near a microphone to avoid static feedback. Thank you. We have with us today Assistant Director of Planning, Emma Whittaker. We have Principal Development Planning Officer, Adam Murray. Senior Planning Officer, when he appears, he's over there, Kevin Cartwright. Sorry. Assistant Planning Officer, Craig Dickinson, when he arrives. And Conservation Officer, James Adams, when he arrives. Legal Services, we have Martha Rees. And Democratic Services, Amy Pride. So, public speakers and councillors, please be aware that you have 3 minutes to speak and you will be advised when you have 30 seconds left. You may finish the sentence, but not another paragraph. Emma, could you please read out the list of speakers, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So, in relation to agenda item 4, which is application S24-0539, which is an application at the Bacula site in Connerby Road, Grantham, we've got two District Ward councillors, Councillors Paul Martin and Paul Stokes, who wish to speak. We've got Mr David Mardle speaking against the application and the agent Emma Lancaster speaking for. In relation to item number 5 on the agenda, which is S23/2364, which is a site at 35 Watergate in Grantham. We've got the District Ward Councillor, Councillor Harrison, wishing to speak. We've got Mr Michael Ellison speaking against, and we've got on behalf of the applicant D. Chantry Kerchain Limited. In relation to item 7 on the agenda, which is application reference S240828 at Casterton Road, Stamford, we've got a statement from Councillor Harish Bisnal-Singh, which we read out to the committee. We've got Mr Kenneth Mills speaking against, and we've got the applicant Elizabeth Belle-Isle and Neil Nedlam speaking for. And then lastly, in terms of speakers, we've got application reference S240795, which is number 6 High Street in Grantham. We've got the agent or applicant, Mr Dean Harrison, speaking for the application. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the agenda, item 1. If we could have apologies for absence, please, Amy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillors Charmaine Morgan, Vanessa Smith, Paul Fellows, Sarah Trotter, Gloria Johnson and Harish Bisnal-Singh. Councillor Max Sawyer is substituting for Councillor Vanessa Smith. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any disclosure of interests for consideration? If you believe you have at any point in the meeting, then please let us know. Councillor Harrison. Thank you. I'm just going to read out a statement in respect of application S240539. which is the new retail unit on Gonaby Road. I declare on behalf of all members of the committee that the council is a landowner. All members have been trained and will determine the application accordingly, notwithstanding the council's interest. Members do not need to make a further declaration unless they have anything further to declare in respect of the application. Okay. The minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of July 2024. Is everyone happy with the accuracy of those minutes? If so, could we have a proposer, please? Councillor Harrison. A seconder, please. Councillor Paul Wood. Could we have a vote for, please? Against? Abstentions? 2. Thank you. So, we'll now go on to the agenda items. Agenda item number 4, application S240539, construction of a new retail unit and associated car parking on Gonaby Road, Grantham. We have Planning Officer Kevin Cartwright, please, to do our presentation. Thank you.
Apologies for that, Chairman. Right, thank you very much. Yeah, as we say, application for construction of a retail unit, associated car parking, access and servicing on the existing overflow car park on Gonaby Road. As we see from the submitted reports, I think the main issues in relation to the application are the principle of the development, impact on amenity and highway safety. We've got some aerial shots of the site there. We can see the application site just to the left of the main Vacilug site. And we've got a zoomed in version of the aerial photograph showing the car parking area that will be the subject of the application site. Then we've got the site plan. So we've got the area that is the siting of the store on the right hand side of the screen there. And on the wider site we can see the Vacilug site edged in blue. There's some elevational details of the proposed store, so quite a modern construction using modern materials. We've got a side section there just showing the relationship with the adjacent property on Orchard Close. And we've got some photographs there that's taken from the entrance to the overflow car park at the moment, which is the subject of the application site. Then just to the right hand side of that is the access into the Vacilug site. That's a photograph taken from the frontage on Gonaby Road looking into the site. That's a photograph taken from a little bit further along Gonaby Road looking back through the open space which was mentioned earlier on that is within the ownership of the council. So looking through that into the application site beyond that. Then And we've got a couple of photographs there just taken from the access point into the site, looking up Gunnery Road, up the hill, and then on the opposite way looking down the hill. And we've got a photograph there just taken, again, looking into the open space with the adjacent property on Orchard Close. That is a photograph taken further down Gunnery Road, just past the school, where that would be the location of the proposed replacement parking as a result of this proposal. So, as per the main body of the report, the principal development is considered to be compliant with policy E4 in so much that it's an employment use. The egress through the informal open space is considered to be compliant with policy OS1 in that whilst it's accepted there would be an access running through it or an egress running through it, the open space would still remain as a function and would still serve to break up the built form. Trees will be retained along the frontage of the development, accepting that the site is currently hard surface, so there isn't an awful lot of scope for additional planting. In relation to residential amenity, it's considered that there's no significant overshadowing or no significant noise and disturbance would result from the proposal. The surfacing area is located on the eastern side, away from the neighbouring properties. So we just go back to the layout plan. So looking on the right-hand side of the two proposals there, the servicing yard would be on the far eastern side of the building, between the boundary of the site and the actual building itself. In relation to highway safety, as I say, as per the amended scheme, there is replacement parking now provided within the adjacent Bacilog site. There would be 49 spaces provided as part of that. In relation to the on-site provision for the store, there will be 19 spaces provided actually on-site. It's considered that there is a suitable access and egress. It's accepted that highways are still raising concern that customers will not use the parking provided and they will park on the highway. That may, form part of the discussion later on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, if we could call forward our speakers. We have Ward Councillors Paul Martin and Councillor Paul Stokes. Thank you. Right, thank you. So you have 3 minutes to speak and you will get a 30-second warning. So, Councillor Martin, if you'd like to start when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. On receiving this application, I was surprised how quickly my trust in the applicant's words had disappeared. Anyone who knows this area well will tell you that the car park that was claimed to be underutilised is constantly full and has been for decades, as per the picture. Obviously, they've tried to rectify this misleading claim by saying they will now place cars in a new car park. Clearly, they were caught out by the wonderful, vigilant residents of the area and Lincolnshire County Council. Move on to the next page, next slide. Okay, the third sentence then claims that proposals meet the needs of an underserved local community. To say this area is underserved is ridiculous. We have 3 great small local businesses as shown on this map. This misleading claim undermines the application and is an attempt to convey a need that simply does not exist. The proposed exit from the site is on Orchard Close, a small road to the north of the site. Access to the land is being sold by SKDC. And this small road is situated at the bottom of a steep Gonnerby Hill where traffic speeds are often increased due to the slope and driving directly into a school safety zone. On page 15 of the planning statement, it states it's expected to generate a non-material increase in the number of vehicles trips to this site. If they genuinely expect no increase in traffic volume, then why do they need 19 car parking bays in contrast to the local shop next door? Eventually, the 2 local run stores will be forced to close, and this one shop will take the 2,000 residents of Great Gonaby who will have to travel down the hill and right into a school safety zone. We will see hundreds more people driving into this school safety zone. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a prior planning proposal from an application asking for a chip shop to be placed next to a Vaculug site. This was for an 8-bay parking area in front of the shop. This council refused permission to build based on highway safety on more than one occasion, I should add. So we've already set a precedent here for this area at a time when traffic volumes were lower than they are today. Next slide, please. It's the one with the fire truck on it. It's got a fire engine on it.
That one, bottom.
Okay, the one at the bottom. As you can see from this slide, a typical day involves high volumes of traffic and blockages in this exact location. There's a yellow lorry blocking the road, causing tailbacks into town whilst it waits for an emergency vehicle to try and get past the parked cars and those turning in and out of Orchard Close. Much time and money has already been spent trying to improve the road safety next to this school. Of all the roads in my county council division, this stretch is one of the most concerning. Okay. To sum up, the addition of a supermarket is, in my opinion, a step too far. LCC Highways oppose it, local councillors oppose it, local residents oppose it. Please reject this application for the safety of the highway, our local school children and the good of the area. And I believe we can reject it on section 115 of the National Planning Policy Framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just clarify, do we know the reference number to that refusal that you are referring to? Do we have sight of it? I couldn't read it, I'm sorry.
It's on the document. It's S03072235.
Sorry, could you just repeat that? Sorry?
S03072235.
I think that's all, Councillor Martin. Thank you. Councillor Stokes, if you could say your little piece, and you have 3 minutes, and you will get a 30-second warning.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm speaking today as ward member for South Kesteven District Council and Grantham Town Council in Grantham Arnoldfield, and not as deputy leader of SKDC, nor as a cabinet member. I'm speaking against the officer recommendation to approve planning. I'm a great believer in the due planning process, but on this occasion, unfortunately, I find the recommendation utter madness, given the vast number of sensitive objections submitted and the lack of favour from Lincolnshire Highways. I think the drawings illustrated by the officers in the presentation to yourselves actually is completely misrepresentation. In terms of the road, it shows Gunnerby Road completely empty. That can only happen just before midnight. The application, I'm afraid, is to some degree muddied by the applicant's need to purchase a ransom strip on Orchard Close, which inevitably gives rise to a lack of transparency. I do appreciate, as you commented earlier, there are separate entities and coupled by necessity. Whilst there have been modifications to the car parking, I believe this is now creating a rat run. Traffic will fly through the entrance, out of the exit, into Orchard Close. And probably when you did your site visit the other day, you will have seen that there's already a bus shelter blocking views. There's a lack of vision, and I can just see there being a real accident on that road. This will only create more opportunities for that to happen. The traffic exiting Orchard Close is particularly bad. The residents of Orchard Close will be trapped by the volume of traffic coming up and down the hill. There needs to be a proper traffic flow assessment, given the already problematic situation outside Gunnerby Hillfoot Primary School. This is already exceptionally dangerous, and the volume of additional traffic created by this proposal will absolutely increase that. Problems on the A1 always been that the traffic is frequently diverted past the area. This application fails to understand or mitigate against this. I would like to see that you overturn the recommendation. I also, in that, if you fail to do that, I would ask that you defer the decision and request a full traffic assessment for something like 12 months. Finally, I don't believe that sufficient attention has been given to prove that residents will be protected from the lighting. I think it will be like floodlights to the residents in and around Orchard Close, and therefore I carry on and say I urge you to overturn the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think we can relieve you. Thank you very much. If we could, David Mardle, speaking against. Yes. So again, you have 3 minutes to speak. Sorry. I do apologise. I think I should have asked if we had any questions to the two ward councillors first. If we do, sorry David, do you think you could just retreat and we'll bring you back? Sorry. So if you could come back forward. My apologies. Okay, thank you. So, questions to these councillors. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I'd just like to ask both the councillors, it's their ward, just refresh me on this. There is actually a speed camera further down the hill, isn't there, which would indicate there are already speeding issues on this section of road. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is a speed camera just down the hill towards Arnoldfield.
And then that will be compiled, so the cars coming south into town will be going straight into cars turning right into this proposed new parking area for the shop.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to ask a question? No? Well, thank you very much. So, apologies, David, thank you for that. You have 3 minutes to speak and 30-second warning. If you press the button when you're ready.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. As you know, the original application was discounted by the Highway Authority, particularly on safety grounds. And once again, when the application was resubmitted, as an afterthought for moving the car park onto the factory site, the Highways Agency also disputed the condition of safety. They put forward that there was major safety concerns regarding even the fact that the car park was moving into the factory site, and also that was put forward by Lincolnshire County Council to say that they still had major safety concerns despite the fact that the car park was moving onto the factory site. I'd also like to point out that none of the slides that you've shown today have actually shown how close the school is to the proposed development, which is directly opposite. And I'm appealing this application on these safety grounds, not for my benefit or anybody else's benefit other than the children. Children have got no idea how fast a car is travelling at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. And that's the types of speeds that come down Gonaby Hill. I've lived there for 11 years and often see vehicles travelling up and down that hill at speeds in excess of 50 miles an hour. And the speed camera that was referred to is actually probably a mile further down the road. It's nowhere near the proposed development, so that doesn't come into being. And the minute they pass that speed camera heading out of town, they accelerate in towards Gonaby Hill. Also, I would have concerns regarding the proposed car parking on the factory site for the employees of Aculug, who would then have to park their car into a working factory and travel from their car to their work site, which for most of you that are involved in health and safety would know that interaction between pedestrians and on-site traffic such as forklift trucks, delivery vehicles, creates an additional hazard to their employees. That's not been addressed at all. I also note that there are no conditions put forward within the planning application that would have additional traffic calming measures put in place, such as restricted parking, additional speed cameras, etc., etc. And one of the slides showed yellow zigzag lines, and the traffic is constantly parked on those, parked in the bus stop. There's absolutely no room for any other traffic whatsoever along that stretch of the road. So, like the councillors before me who I've not collaborated with, I'm also objecting against this application on safety grounds.
Thank you very much. You stayed well within your 3 minutes. Well done. If anybody has any questions of clarification to Mr. Model, would they like to ask it? Okay, Councillor Ellis. Mr. Model, could you just turn your microphone off? Thank you.
Thank you. I should have asked probably the ward councillors, but I don't think it was evident that, and can you confirm that there is a pedestrian crossing just down from the school, which would be adjacent to the entrance? And that's a Pelican crossing, or? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Marwell. Thank you. Now call the agent, Emma Lancaster, please. Thank you. Thank you. You have 3 minutes and a 30-second warning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for the opportunity to speak today. I'd just like to clarify before I start that reference to the site being underutilised was that a statement that it could be put to better use rather than that it is not currently used for car parking at all, which is how it has been understood by some. The proposal is for a local convenience store that's designed to cater for top-up and basket shopping, and it's aimed at both local and pass-by customers. Whilst we know there are shops in the local area, these are typically very small and provide limited choice for local residents. The officer's report is fair and balanced. It identifies the issues that have been raised by consultees and local residents, and it addresses each of these in turn. We know that existing levels of on-street parking is a concern for residents, given the site's proximity to the local school. And we also note that the Highways Officer has highlighted the potential for additional on-street parking as a result of the proposals. However, notwithstanding this comment, which isn't supported by any of the evidence which has been submitted, it's important to be clear about some other facts that the Highways Officer has been clear on. Firstly, the officer accepts that the evidence on trip creation is sound. Secondly, the officer is happy with the level of replacement car parking for those working and visiting the factory next door. Third, he does not say that the access and egress are unsafe in any way. And four, there will be 21 spaces on site for customers, including disabled spaces, and he does not raise concerns about the number of spaces, but simply questions if these will always be used by customers. It is a fact that the operators of the store cannot force customers to use the spaces they provide, but to maximise the prospect of them doing so, they can do their best to make sure that they are kept available through careful management. A car parking management plan could be the subject of an additional planning condition and approved by the Council in due course. It would also be open to the Council to extend and enforce the existing TRO along Gunnerby Road to further control on-street parking if members think this is necessary. It is important for members to understand that despite some lingering concerns about on-street parking, your highways officer does not say the level of impact would be severe, and this is the test when considering planning applications. It is a high bar and one which the Labour government proposes to raise through changes to the NPPF later this year. So taking all matters into account, the case officer has concluded the development is acceptable in principle, and they've also explained there are no impacts which are unacceptable or cannot be made acceptable through planning conditions. This includes lighting, noise and other issues. So we respectfully invite members to take the advice of your professional officer and in the process secure 20 new jobs for the area and improved access to fresh and competitively priced groceries for your residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the agent? Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Chair. You're very eloquent there. Thanks for coming in and speaking. You're very eloquent there on what highways didn't actually say, but what they do say is that it will be a risk, an increase in vehicle parking and the footfall of children to school at finishing times, parking on-road parking that will be encouraged by the store being there. So they quite clearly do say that as a risk, and for that reason they recommend that we don't accept this. I also personally have a massive reservation.
Sorry, Councillor Harrison, is this leading to a question?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the question now.
Okay.
I also have a personal reservation that cars turning right into the store will be massively hampered by the speed of cars coming down the hill. Did you do any surveys on that at all?
The planning application is accompanied by a transport technical note that was produced by qualified technical highway consultants. They did do speed surveys and they also did traffic counts to inform that. They also considered the use of the store and the typical levels of traffic generation that would result in, which your highways officer has seen and hasn't disputed.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Bellamy?
Well, I just wanted clarification from one of the officers, actually, that what the new government might do in the future to the NPPF is irrelevant to this application. Could we just confirm that, please?
Emma?
It's a very good and interesting question. The NPPF is, there is a consultation at the moment to the NPPF. It's got lots of things in there that we're going to have to think about as a planning authority, which are not relevant to now. It is a material consideration because it's a direction of, but not one that we should necessarily give a huge amount of weight to at this stage. I might have a different answer in relation to housing because there are written ministerial statements to that effect. However, the agent is quite correct. The bar in the current NPPF is severe impact, and the Highways Authority has not said that there'll be a severe impact. And again, as has already been stated, it doesn't go into detail around the evidence to support their suggestions. So I'm sure we'll come back to that in due course. But material consideration, to answer the question, probably limited weight at this stage.
Thank you, yes. Someone did refer to the NPPF paragraph 115, which is the current statement. Development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. So that's currently in the NPPF. I don't think there are any more questions for you. Thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to try and take questions to the presenting officer. I want to make each issue separate, please. So if we could start with this main issue of the highway safety, and we'll continue with other issues after that. So if we could have questions, please. So Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It just confused me. As my understanding of highway safety is that Lincs County Council won't object to refusal unless it's a severe case of highway safety. Now, in this case, they have said their recommendation is that we refuse the application. I mean, a lot of the cases before, we've thought as a committee, and I have as a councillor, that there probably is safety issues, but Lincs County Council have said it's okay, so we've gone along with that. This is a case where they're clearly saying, and I'm right in thinking, aren't I, that it has to be severe before they will recommend a refusal, which they have done in this case. So what implications have that got then? I can't quite understand. How does that imply that you've actually come to a decision for approval when Lincs County Council are clearly recommending refusal on safety grounds?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. As per the agent, they have never mentioned the word severe impact. They have said there are concerns about the application and they do feel it is detrimental to highway safety. Reading between the lines, I interpret their concern about, as highlighted by the agent, not concerns about the level of provision of parking for the store, not concerns about level of provision of parking for the factory itself, in so much that replacement parking is deemed to be sufficient. The concern appears to relate around, notwithstanding the levels of provision of parking, there is no guarantee that customers will actually go into the site and use the parking. They're concerned, I think, that it is just a quick drop-off trip where somebody might just couldn't be bothered to go into the car park and they would park on the road. And it's that additional impact on the road that they have concerns about. My take on that is that is the test for every single application. You have to provide a certain amount of parking that's deemed suitable. The Highway Authority doesn't have any standards as to what the parking provision should be. So the applicant has based that on a nominal comparable store that they've had experience of that has a requirement for X amount of parking. So they've modelled it on that. The Highway Authority hasn't challenged whether or not that level of provision is sufficient. It's just the fact that they don't think that customers will actually go in and use it. So my take on that is that that could occur on every single application we have. All we can ask is that developers make appropriate levels of provision. We've got no mechanism to make customers or end users use that parking. So that's where I'm struggling and have a degree of tension with the comments of the Highway Authority. I don't know what more we could actually do from a planning perspective beyond the fact that they're providing parking. We've even, as I say, as a late additional items, we've circulated a suggested draft condition that would ensure that the parking is available for customers, be it appropriate signage, etc., that it's customer only, directing people to the car park. Therefore, it would be utilised potentially by customers and not by anybody else. So that would maximise its availability. I struggle to see what more we can do beyond also intimating that the other option is that you're looking at a traffic regulation order, but that is very much within the gift of the Highway Authority rather than us as a planning authority.
Just come back there, Kevin. Presumably, though, because the Highway Authority, Lincs County Council have come up recommending a few, that must weigh quite heavily against the application, doesn't it? Yeah, I know you balance the things, but it must weigh quite heavily against the application.
Yeah, through your chair. As I say, very much a struggle with the comments here. It is very much a planning balance. They are a technical consultee, as they are with all consultees, but they are consultees at the end of the day. It is ourselves as a planning authority that must weigh up those various representations and comments of the public, etc., and decide whether or not we agree and how much weight to attribute to it.
Thank you. Emma would just like to say some words. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like councillors just to cast their mind back to their planning training as well, where we say it every single year, everything's got to be underpinned by evidence. It can't be anecdotally that I'm concerned that people won't use the car park. It's got to be evidence that there is insufficient car parking, and if there is insufficient car parking, what the consequences of that are in terms of impact on highway safety. In this instance, as Kevin has already explained, there is no concern about the level of car parking, just a particular concern that people won't use that car park. Interestingly, the county have no evidence that they've presented to us to support that, and where we've asked them for further clarification and also if they will defend that position at an appeal, they've said it's very much down to us because it's our decision. So whichever way we make the decision today, if we are minded to refuse on highway safety grounds, we will have to evidence to a planning inspector why it is that we think people will not use this car park, and then why that causes a highway safety issue. So if you just bear that in mind when we're starting to debate the item, and we can deal with any other questions as they arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Bellamy?
My question is, well, it's quite simple actually. Wouldn't you accept though that sometimes highways make decisions on rather than quantitative, they use qualitative by their experience, and that's where they come to draw the line, you know, where they come to make their recommendation?
Emma?
No. Highways is a very technical subject. It's always underpinned by evidence in terms of highway transport assessments, in terms of junctions. We look at sight lines, which are underpinned by standards and measurements. Everything is a very, very technical subject, and there's not really that same level of subjectivity that there might be in terms of design, for example, where we'll all have our different views over whether we think something is attractive or not. I think as well the other important thing is where matters can be addressed by condition. We've got to suggest a condition where the applicants can use their parking management plan to ensure that they make the try and deal with the issue of people not using the car park, so we can control it by condition, and that means if we can address something by condition, we shouldn't be refusing the application. So just going back to the point, it's not got that same level of subjectivity when we're talking about highways. It is very technical. You've either got delays or you haven't. You've either got insufficient parking or you haven't. You've either got inadequate sight lines or you haven't, basically. So not quite the same level of judgment. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Emma. I'd like to follow that up. But you might like to go first, David.
Well, my only follow-up question is a factory only a few hundred yards down the road from there, and there's bookers and people like that. Where's the parking for the HGVs? Do you mean which HGVs? I'm sorry, going to the shop? That is quite a busy road, isn't it? I think everybody will accept that. And there's factories and warehouses and stuff like that down, and their vehicles are LGV, HGV vehicles. And very often you'll get LGV or HGV drivers parking up on the side of the road just to pop in the shop to get a sandwich. So.
Yes, I think that's what's called from experience, not necessarily evidence. But I'd just like to follow up this idea of evidence. I mean, obviously, LCC Highways have made this objection and want a refusal. Do we know why they haven't come up with proper evidence if everything is technical? They've come up with a reason which has no evidence. So can we just explore that, Emma, please? Thank you.
I can't give you an answer, I'm afraid. You would need to direct that one to Lincolnshire County Council, who are the consultees on the matter. They would be able to explain for themselves.
Yes, I do wish they'd attend, actually, on occasions, highways, but they never seem to. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a bit of a misnomer. How can you have evidence for a bill from something that's not even completed yet? So you can't have evidence of it because it's not there. We have got evidence from Tesco's on Harrowby Lane, where we had years of parking on the curbs there. We have got evidence of Tesco's on Barrowby Gate, where they park on the side of the roads rather than go into the car park at the back. So that's just two shops that we've got in the town. We've got them in every shop we've got in the town. We've got evidence that they don't go into the car parks. It's a convenience for them that they park on the edge of the road and walk into the shop. So as far as evidence goes, it's there, but we can't possibly have evidence from something that's not already in existence, can we?
Have we any more questions, please, to the officer? Well, we'll leave it there and we'll come back to it in debate. I'd like to move on to what I think is probably the second issue here, and that's the egress and the impact on amenity in the open space. Does anybody have any questions to the officer on that, please? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Again, we saw the other day when we were on site, a van parked right on the junction, and as the officer saw it as well, and as he said, oh, he shouldn't park there. Well, no, he shouldn't, but he is. He is parked there, and right opposite it, the street sign had been battered and bent and twisted beyond all recognition. So what happens if that's a little child sat there? You know, this is my worry.
Was that a question?
I'm not sure that
I'm
I
not
understood there to be a question. The only comment that I would make is that as a road user, we're all supposed to adhere to the rules of the road, including the highway code and the traffic regulations that are enforced, and they should be enforced, and we should not be refusing planning permission because people break other laws and rules.
Have we any more questions on this other issue? No. Do we have any questions on any other issues relating to this application? No. I think we're best to move into debate now. And again, I'm going to divide it up, if we may. I think we want to debate the main issue first, which is the highways issue. If we could stick to that, please, for ease, and then we'll move on to the other issues. So, who would like to make a starting statement? Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Again, our hands are tied because we can only comment. We can't give our opinions on this. We can only comment on highways issues that highways have raised, as far as I understand that. Is that right, Emma? Can we raise our own issues with that?
So we're the decision makers. It's entirely up to you to, as a committee, if you wish to raise other concerns. My only ever warning to the committee is that needs to be underpinned by evidence in order to support that, because we have to then defend that should the applicant go to appeal. And if we can't defend it because there's no real evidence and it's just well, yeah, I didn't think that was okay on the day sort of scenario, then we would be potentially having costs against us for unreasonable behaviour. So that's my ever warning. I think when it comes to technical matters like highways, you'd have to question why, if you've got a different concern, was that not raised by the highways officer, and that perhaps they're questions that you can ask us before committee, and we can resolve that separately. But by all means, say what you need to say, and then we can advise accordingly. That might be the best way.
Okay, thanks for that. So my issue is with the whole thing. My lad went to that school all the way through, and there were always issues with parking there. There always will be until we get some sort of parking sorted out there. But the cars park, so they're taking up a good half of the lane going north. So cars coming up that hill that are wanting to turn right into the stall will already most likely be over that central reservation line. Cars we know are speeding down there. We know that because 500 yards down the road there is a speed camera. So they know they're speeding 500 yards down the road, so they're definitely going to be speeding coming down past Vaculux there. And we know that as a fact. We know that's why the camera was put in there. So we've got speeding cars coming down there. We've got cars going up to turn right into the store that quite possibly will have to be over that central reservation line. And then adding to that, we've got children. We've got, and we all know what kids are like. There's a candy store over the road that's up from the thing. You've got cars blocking the road. You've got cars waiting to turn right. They'll cross wherever. And what happens then when these children can't get seen when the speeding car's coming down? Yes, we've got a crossing, but will they always use that crossing? You know, this is my issue.
Councillor Bellamy.
Well, I'll just repeat what I said about the on-street parking, which highways was obviously their main residual issue. that's a major route, and so you would expect any vehicle to stop and park there if there was a shop, which includes articulated lorries, rigid lorries, vans. You know, it's not just cars. You know, it's big vehicles as well, purely because of the nature of the road and its the shop's proximity to the factory, Moy Park factory, Booker's, and other businesses that are down there. So I'm still concerned.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
I have a problem with that. I mean, Links County Council Highways are regarded as the professional experts on highways and highway safety. We've always been told that. And like I've said previously, when they've not made any comments about applications, we thought there'd been safety issues. In this case, they're clearly indicating there are safety issues and they recommend refusal. I find it very hard to not take that advice on board. They've said that comment. I can't quite understand, Emma, why you say they can't defend it. They've actually said that comment. They're the experts on highway safety. They've said that comment with all the experience they've got. So I find it hard not to take that on board. And if they've said it, surely they've got to defend it. Like Councillor Harrison says, maybe they can't get the evidence because it's not there yet. But from their own experience, that's what they're saying. They're saying it quite strongly as well. Recommend we refuse it. So I feel I cannot ignore that advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma?
Just to clarify, I didn't say that they couldn't defend it as in they wouldn't physically be able to defend it, and it's not a case of when we use evidence, we quite often use comparators. You know, you're absolutely right. We don't know exactly how many car parking spaces, and we can only use the best evidence by using similar sites and similar locations that will tell us that there's a certain number of visitors that will come by cars, and therefore that's how you work out the likely parking spaces. It's how county would work out parking standards, and it's how an applicant work out how many parking spaces they need. The reason I said that they won't defend it is because they've told us they will not defend it at appeal. It will be up to us to take literally those comments and put those comments in front of an inspector and for us to defend those comments. So it is county that are telling us that they will not support us in appearing at an appeal scenario to defend the comments that they have made. Their choice, not mine.
Emma, wouldn't our defence be that we've had this recommendation from Links County Council Highways recommending refusal?
There's no point having it.
Otherwise, we go to them, we get their opinion, they're the experts. We should follow that, surely. That's what we've been told in the past quite strongly when we've not wanted to agree with it. And I realise it's our decision, but we rely on expert opinion. And in this case, the Links County Council Highways are the experts.
I think our legal advisor, Martha, would like to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thanks for the comments, members. Listen to it. I think just picking up on your question there, Councillor Wood, it's that, yes, LCC are your experts in terms of highway safety matters. In the context of this application, they haven't raised objection to the actual access arrangements. So, for instance, picking up on Councillor Harrison's concerns about traffic turning right, coming north down the hill, for instance, LCC have got no concerns regarding that arrangement. They consider that to be safe. They have now said that they are content with the number of car parking spaces being provided, and in terms of the existing factory and this store, so they are saying that in theory is safe. In their expert opinion, is safe. Their concerns relate to that the operator of the store, in their opinion, cannot guarantee that existing car parking issues experienced in that location won't be made worse. That's their opinion. Your officers, however, as you've seen through the additional information report, have suggested that that could be mitigated to the extent that can be, because no operator for any store in any location or any building in any location can dictate to people where they park, but your officers have put to that they think it's capable of mitigation via the car parking management plan, and that they could look to address the concerns that have been raised by LCC via that condition. The MPPF directs you that if something can be addressed and mitigated by a condition, that it should be. Additionally, the Highways Authority are the Highways Authority. Traffic regulation orders, changing speed limits, putting double yellow lines, for instance, is within their remit. So if there then became additional problems and additional action was needed, that would fall within the remit of the Highway Authority. They can't, the planning regime isn't necessarily the regime to impose the changing of a speed limit. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. On a road, apologies. Where, as Councillor Harrison is saying, there is an existing issue, there is a speed camera, there's already mitigation in place to address the issue. If that issue is made worse, that LCC at the present aren't proposing that additional speed cameras and mitigation is needed, and they could take steps at that future point. But your officers are putting it to you in their expert opinion that the concerns of LCC could be addressed through the condition. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Martha. It is a dilemma. Here we've got highways, for once, objecting to something, haven't we? And we're putting the onus on us to decide. And yet it's in their remit to put any TROs and double yellow lines, whatever they want there. So I do find it a very strange situation that we're in. They haven't backed down with their objection. It's all about the parking on the road, not the number of car parking spaces, which are deemed to be adequate. And it's that combination that they seem to be worried about, causing restricted visibility at pedestrian crossing points and junctions, which will impact upon highway safety. So I think we're in quite a difficult situation here. I think it's Highways recommending refusal is a conflict, and who's going to make that judgment between the planners and the highways, and this is our job. So we can't mitigate it very easily through planning conditions. We have got a proposal in the additional items to add another condition, which is prior to the occupation of the store hereby permitted, a car park management scheme shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. And that's to ensure a satisfactory form of development and in the interest of highway safety. I mean, it's a move in the right direction. And so we've really got to decide who can take it forward, this mitigation, because there is obviously a risk. We all know it from experience. Nobody's actually giving us specific data. And if we do give this approval, and I'm going to ask this question of Emma or Martha, but I can understand that we are wary of giving an approval where safety and safety of children is of the utmost importance. And if we give approval against highways, you know, how vulnerable are we to a lot of criticism on that? If there was an accident and you know, does it come down heavily on our judgment? So I think that's where our big dilemma is. It's sort of chicken and egg almost, which comes first, the TROs or the planning. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Chair, and with Councillor Bellamy there. This all needs to be sorted out before any of this can be done. All your traffic stuff needs to be sorted out. Now, we are told month after month that highways are the experts on this. I, for one, do not want to be one that goes against the experts' choices here. If you know that area well, and as Councillor Bellamy said, you get a big Arctic park there outside the shop, there's going to be bedlam there. And I, for one, do not want to be one putting my name to passing this and then shortly down the line something horrific happening to somebody. So I won't be voting to pass this, I'm afraid.
Councillor Bird? Sorry, I think it was Councillor Ellis first. I do apologise.
Yeah, going back to what can be evidenced, and we can't evidence something that doesn't exist. However, we can take into account the existing factors, and that is when you're coming into town, you're going from 60 mile an hour speed limit to a 30 on a downward slope. Very, very difficult to slow down. We've all experienced it. We've all done it. You've got a bus stop right where the entrance would be. You'll have buses pulling in. Added to that, possibility of HGVs pulling in, cars turning right into the supermarket, the location. And also, we need to take into account that currently the entry egress of this car park, the cars go in once a day, out once a day, whereas if this gets approval, we'll have constant traffic going in and out. These are all factors that need to be taken into consideration, and again, to me, it screams out a safety nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you. So it is all the combination of factors, you're saying. Councillor Baird?
Thank you very much, Chair. Added into the combination of factors, I'd just like to raise the issue of delivery lorries and the delivery management plan, which is obviously a requirement. So I don't know if the delivery lorries and we've got permitted times, which actually look very generous. So potentially, on top of the regular parking and the customers, there will be delivery lorries going in and out, which hopefully will only need to go forward and not any reversing on site. But the actual hours do seem to be say, quite wide, and I think if that is coinciding with certainly the 3 o'clock time might well be a concern because of additional families maybe doing a quick shop before collecting children, all that sort of thing. I wonder if the store item 10 there is hereby approve a delivery management plan shall be submitted and approved, which I don't know if just to confirm whether that has arrived. I'm sort of slightly concerned that we're being asked to make decisions again before we've got all the facts here, and I don't know if potential deferral is a possibility at some point. So, but it's the delivery plans on top of all the other traffic that would concern me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think there's a limit on the size of a delivery vehicle, am I correct? And as well as the times. And do they have their own place to park when they get to the store and they can turn around? I seem to remember there is a limit on the size of the delivery vehicle for that reason. Can we...
Yeah, through you, Chair. The delivery management plan was more on the basis of protecting the amenity of the neighbouring occupiers, so it was more to do with how the deliveries were unloaded on the site, so they weren't clanking around with trolleys and all things like that. So it was more a residential amenity issue rather than the actual coming and going to the site. That was covered by the other conditions. So it was more to do with making sure they weren't sat in the delivery lorries with the engines running and stuff like that. It was just more to protect the amenity of the neighbouring occupiers.
Can Emma just say something, please, first?
Thank you. I think just to add to that, notwithstanding counties' concerns that they've raised in relation to the application, they've not mentioned the car parking or the arrangements for the delivery vehicles, either within the site or exiting or entering the site, which I would have expected them to have done so if they've done a thorough job, because that's part of what they need to do. There is a condition that restricts those hours, so they would be outside of school times, which was delivery hours between 9:30 and 3 p.m. and delivery within the following times: 9:30 to 3 p.m. and 4 o'clock to 6 p.m. Monday to Saturdays, and not at all Sundays or bank holidays. I'm sure that's something that if committee was minded to approve, they could look at those times if they're a little bit concerned about whether that brings it a little bit too close to that school drop-off or pick-up time.
Yes, thank you. Somebody has mentioned, Emma, the possibility of a deferment for a proper traffic assessment to get some data on this, bearing in mind the sensitivity of concerns with children involved here. Is that a possibility?
So an application can be deferred. If you defer it, you need to be very clear about what it is that you want to see and why you're deferring it, so what additional information the committee wants to have back. And then when it comes back, it is a reasonable expectation for the applicant that if you're satisfied with that additional information, that the scheme will be then acceptable and that we don't bring in other reasons that we could reasonably foresee now. So you could defer it, but actually if there's something else fundamentally that you're going to object to, then really we need to tackle with that today. So I'd need to understand what it is that you potentially wanted to defer for, but bear in mind they've submitted highways evidence. I'm not sure what else the applicant can do to try and alleviate the concerns raised that I've heard from the committee, but also that the county have raised, which are on this concern that people just won't use the car parking, or that there's perhaps lorries that will be parking on the highway and causing other obstructions whilst they're popping in to pick something up from the shop. So I don't know what other evidence you'd be expecting to counter that, in all honesty. But we could debate a deferral if you wanted.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford, and then...
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to agree with everybody's concerns regarding highways. But again, I think we're in between a rock and a hard place. The evidence we want to get cannot be gotten until it's built. So therefore we would have to, or highways then will have to do something to remit that. If there's parking, they're going to have to install double yellow lines, put another speed camera up, they're going to have to get people out there, enforcement, traffic wardens as they used to be called, out there to give out tickets. That is the only way, unfortunately, I can see this going. Because we can't defer it, because if we ask for traffic survey, all that's going to do really is give us the amount of traffic that is going down the road. They won't be parking where we think they're going to be parking because there's nothing there to park for, because it's not built. So we really are rocking a hard place. The only thing the other thing I'm still thinking about how I'm going to vote, if this should get passed, we haven't got any EV charging points. I think perhaps that's something we might need to ask and request. And if the delivery times, I would suggest 2:30 as a cut-off time and 4:30, because schools do have clubs, parents turn up late so they can get parked and all the rest of it. Thank you. I'm still thinking and debating in my head, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Do we know how often local authorities in general ignore road safety advice? If, as I suspect, the figure is very low, I think that is something we could well take note of, it acting as a warning, perhaps.
I don't know if we have any statistics on that. We rarely find highways objecting, so this is quite unusual for us in some ways, but it is an absolute dilemma. I totally understand that. Councillor Bellamy, please, and then I think we'll call this element to a halt for now. Okay.
No, just getting back to what Councillor Crawford said about EV charging point. I think these shops, by their very nature, are, you're only in there 5 minutes, aren't you? So whether that would be, something that was, whether we'd be going sort of over the top a little bit by asking them. But I mean, I'll go with what the committee says. But like I say, but normally if I go to my local co-op, I'm only in there 10 minutes, I'm out. So it's hardly worth sort of plugging an electric car in. But
no, I take your point. I think you're generally nipping in and out, aren't you? A quarter of an hour, possibly. Councillor Crawford?
Just coming back on that point, there's a lot of small convenience stores that do have EV charging points, and it might make the customer stay there longer and buy more. You never know.
I think what we'll do, I'm not going to take any proposals till we've had the full debate, so I think we just need to move on to the other issue of the egress and the open space. If we can debate that, please, now, and stick to that. And then we'll come back in the round if there's anything else. So if anybody has anything to debate on that element of the application. No? Do I assume you're all happy with that element of it? Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm far from happy with it, but I'm struggling to what the director will allow me to go against it on. I mean, like I say, we saw the other day exactly what was happened there with the van on the corner, the street sign on the other side smashed. We're going to be coming in and out of there from 7 o'clock, 7 days a week. So that's going to impact on the residents that are already there that aren't getting that travel, that amount of business from that time, 7 days a week, you know. So, yeah, I've got issues with that, but I struggle to think what anything that under planning regs that I could raise against it.
I think the issue with this is the amenity, an egress road, if you like, coming across what's an open space at the moment. There is number 6, very close to that boundary where the road is coming through. As far as highways are concerned, they haven't raised any concerns at all about that, so I think we can put that on one side. There is, if anybody wants to debate whether the scale harms the character and amenities of the area just there, which I think it probably comes under policy E4, and also the open space policy OS1. We're supposed to protect all forms of open space, not change the character necessarily. Do we think this is, with disturbance, lights, traffic flows? So I would say those are the major issues we need to discuss, if anything, on here. Is that open space a natural barrier, buffer zone to what was the employment zone, where the shop would be? So those are what I was thinking we'd debate the issues on. Councillor Ellis?
Thank you, Chair. I would always object to the loss of any green space. I think we don't have enough of them in Grantham. I would like to see more green spaces utilised in better ways, rewilding, whatever. Also, when we were on the site visit the other day, there's a bench there, and we did see somebody using it, so it clearly is used as a space to relax, whatever, maybe wait for the bus. That's, you know, the bus stop's just down the road. So, yeah, it would be a concern. The loss of that pocket, green pocket of space, would be of concern to me.
Thank you. Councillor Bellamy?
Obviously, there will be, I'd say, a fairly minor impact on number 6, but at least with this development, it is a one-way system in and out. So you're not going to get, am I right in saying that? Yeah, it is a one-way system, yeah. So at least they're only going to be coming past the, or in proximity to number 6 once. And with it being already quite a busy road out there, I don't think it's going to have a massive impact as far as the road noise is concerned or anything like that. So I think I'm fairly content with that, to be honest. So, I mean, there will be a bit of an impact, but I can't see it being major. So,
thank you. Have we any more comments? Councillor Sawyer?
Thank you, Chairman. It's a fairly general question, if I may, directed to Emma. I've been looking at a list of material planning considerations. Which could apply in this case, and which could we rule out?
Oh, I think there's a long list in both directions. We're looking at the policies on open space, the principle of protecting open space, and then we're also looking at the character and amenity of that area. Emma, you might like to give some answer to that.
I can't, I'm afraid. There's no definitive list of what is and is not a material consideration, and what is a material consideration in one case might not be another. So I think the best thing to do is to say whether or not it's something you're concerned with, and then we'll say whether that's material or not, rather than the other way around, because I could be here all day telling you about all sorts of things that are possibly material considerations ever. Yeah, it's no simple answer, I'm afraid.
Okay, now, do we have any other issues people want to raise and debate before we move on? I think we've covered the two major points of concern. So, does anybody like to make a proposal? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose that we refuse this. I'd like to use the Highway Safety 6.4.2, 6.4.8, 6.4.11, and as Councillor Ellis said, the loss of the green space.
Thank you. So that's two reasons. The highway safety and the loss of the green space. Councillor Wood, you're going to second that. We could go straight to the vote unless somebody's got an alternative proposal or an amendment they'd like to add into this. So if we go to the vote, we have a proposal. Let me summarise this.
Just come back.
Yes.
Can I just clarify something open space? I don't know, Kevin, if we can get the plan out, although actually members should have it. I just need you to be mindful of one thing before you reach a decision. Actually, you can see it yourself on page 47 of the papers. It's not total loss of the open space, it's only partial. So I just need you to be really clear that you are still concerned that that partial loss of that open space is harmful to the general amenity of the area. If that's what the concern is, that's absolutely fine. It's just, I think, Councillor Ellis, you just said loss of open space, and we didn't really debate whether we meant partial or full. That's absolutely fine. And I don't need a response. I just need councillors to be really clear of that when they're making their mind up. And I think in terms of a reason for refusal, it's not a case of just quoting the paragraphs raised by the county. We'd need to come up with a proper reason for refusal, because that's what they've not done. What I would suggest, and we can finesse the wording, is that it would have to be something along the lines of that we're concerned that there is, just trying to think off the top of my head, hang on a sec. Can I just add certain policies onto the open space and push that through our experts here? We definitely have the local plan policy OS1. We also have DE1, the MPPF 12, and also certain elements of E4. As for the highway safety, I think we're coming up with a good reason here to build in the cumulative ideas and the types of vehicles that are quite likely to park on the road there. So I think we'll give Adam another minute or two to come up with something and see if that suits what we're trying to say best. Councillor Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I was going to suggest that, but do we need a few minutes for a precise wording to be formulated?
That is what we're trying to do before we take it any further.
Do we need a few minutes break, or can we?
I think we don't need that. I'd have trouble getting you all back.
I think, to be fair, we're nearly there, and what we've just been suggesting is Councillor Bellamy's comments, incorporating those around the larger vehicles and how they could be accommodated, because there's no parking specifically for those customers as well. So it's just about weaving in the comments that we've heard generally from the councillors. But I think Adam's coming up with something that will obviously finesse it, but it's about
So, Councillor Crawford?
Could the consideration of additional noise be something? Because the people at number 6 are suddenly going to have a road behind their back garden. Don't forget that when we all get out of the car, some of us close the car doors quietly, some slam them, like my son. You've got the addition of people chattering. You're there at 7 o'clock in the morning, people are going to be possibly chattering about this, that and the other. Again, late at night, if people are going into the store, doors banging, noise from people talking, that's additional to what they're going to be used to previously.
Well, I would suggest, and I'll take advice as well, that we use words like disturbance, light, traffic flows, noise, that sort of thing, because it was a quiet, open space, and now it's going to have quite a busy egress road, albeit the more going one way, but at nights and early mornings you're going to get a lot. That's a possibility. I'm going to take advice.
Environmental protection haven't objected though of this, so.
So I think, as Councillor Bellamy just said, environmental protection would have looked at that. They haven't objected. The only comment was actually Councillor Bellamy's, who said there'd be an impact, but perhaps it wouldn't be sufficiently bad enough. But also bear in mind that whilst a little bit of open space is currently open space, in relation to the rest of the site, it's an existing car park anyway, an overspill car park. So there's an element of that noisy activity that's taking place already. So you just have to bear that in mind.
I'll just counter that by saying that I think this was a buffer space between the existing employment site and the residents of Orchard Close, and now we're going to impose an egress road through it. So that would be the way I'd think about it. And we're still giving Adam a few minutes here. He's typing away. Yes, I'm sure he'll come up with something, and we'll then look at that before we move forward. Okay, over to you, Adam.
So, based on the debate from members, we've got the application scheme would result in vehicles, including heavy goods vehicles, parking on the public highway, which, due to the proximity of the primary school, would lead to restricted visibility at nearby junctions and crossing points, resulting in an unacceptable impact on highway safety, contrary to policy ID2 of the adopted South Kesteven Local Plan and paragraph 115 of the National Planning Policy Framework.
I'll make just a comment. Could we make reference to the amount of factories and, for instance, we've got Vaculux there. They have delivery vehicles coming in. We've got Bookers. We've got Moy Park. Like I say, so we have got, you know, in the very close proximity, we've got, you know, several delivery points. Because if it does go to appeal, for instance, you know, it would be good to make reference to them, I think. But
I think the character of the traffic in that area, is that what you're trying to say?
I think we can obviously reference that it's a very busy road, and we can incorporate some of that into the reason, but it'll absolutely be reflected in the minutes, and then should we end up in an appeal scenario, it can come out in detail there to support the concerns then. Are we having a second reason, Adam, or are we just going to look at that first one? Has anybody any other comments on what Adam said for that reason for refusal on highway safety? So in relation to open space, I think we can just say that the loss of, partial loss of the open space would be harmful to the character and amenity of the area and contrary to local plan policies, and Councillor Munns, you've already cited a few, being OS 1, DE1, MPPF paragraph 12 and E4. Yeah. It doesn't need to be a complicated reason.
No, there's quite a few policies it falls under. So that makes 2 reasons for refusal. So if Adam can give us those words, please. His fingers are typing away. Emma's just said it. So is everybody happy with that verbal reason there? It's nearly there. And then we'll take this to the vote.
So if we go back to the first reason, we've got the application scheme would result in vehicles, including heavy goods vehicles, parking on the public highway, which due to the proximity to the primary school and other large-scale commercial and employment land uses that have a prevalence of larger vehicles accessing them, would lead to a restricted visibility at nearby junctions and crossing points, resulting in an unacceptable impact on highway safety, contrary to policy ID2 of the adopted local plan and paragraph 115 of the National Planning Policy Framework. And the second reason would be the application scheme will result in the partial loss of an area of informal public open space, which will result in harm to the character and appearance of the area, contrary to policies DE1, OS1 and E4 of the adopted local plan and section 12 of the National Planning Policy Framework.
Thank you very much, Adam. I mean, they sound that you've captured what the committee wanted to say there very well. So I think we can take that. Sorry, Councillor Bird.
Sorry, just clarifying. Is the proximity to the school mentioned in there? It is.
Yeah, the proximity to the primary schools in that first reason.
So thank you very much. So it's been proposed by Councillor Harrison, seconded by Councillor Wood. We have the 2 reasons spelled out there. If we take this to the vote, all those 4. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that is refused for those 2 reasons. Thank you very much. I think we'll have a 5-minute break, just a very quick break, please, before we move on to the next one. And thank you. Under item 5, application number S23-2364, which is the change of use and alterations for 2 dwellings in the erection of 4 dwellings at the rear of 35 Watergate, Grantham. If I can hand you over to the Senior Planning Officer, Kevin Cartwright, for his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for clarity, it would be my intention to do a presentation to capture the listed building application as well, so in relation to S23-2365 as well.
Yes, we'll take those effectively together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the key issues in relation to the proposal are the principle of the development, impact on heritage assets, amenity impact on highway safety. That's the application site there, edged in red. So it's sort of the land between existing property on Watergate and then on Union Street to the rear. There's an aerial photograph just showing the site again. That's a survey plan showing the existing buildings on the site. Members should be aware through the report that there was it is a burgage plot, and there was a sort of substantial building on the site that was unfortunately demolished due to public safety reasons, and to some extent this proposal is looking to replace that lost building. So there's a proposed site layout, so it's sort of colour coded, showing you the elements that are the conversion being the green element and the purple element being the new build. There's the existing elevations of the buildings that are the subject of the conversion application. And then we've got the elevations showing the conversion elements. So they're the buildings directly to the rear of 35. And there's the floor plans of said conversion. There's some elevational details of the buildings that we lost. That's the sort of buildings that are the new build element that they would be replacing these. These were demolished, as I say, on public safety grounds. So we can see that there was a two-storey element at the forwardmost projection. There's just some elevation showing the rear. That would be the northern elevation, sort of not with any openings or anything. That's, as I say, that's what we're attempting to sort of try and replace with the new build element. And there's also some sketch plans showing the building that was demolished, as I say, on public safety grounds. And that is the new build element that would replace the buildings that were demolished. As I say, again, I've tried through the design process and input from our heritage advisors, we've tried to get a building that sort of pays attention to the fact that the site is a Burgess plot, and we're trying to get something back that would try and replicate that. Admittedly, it's not a like for like. It's not quite exactly in the same footprint and location as previously from the building that was demolished, but it is an attempt to replicate, you know, the sort of form and layout of the Burgess plot. Again, paying attention to the fact that there was a single sort of orientated build with windows and openings just down the southern elevation. We have accepted a degree of openings in the rear northern elevation in this instance, just to make the living accommodation workable, but we have attempted to try and, wherever possible, replicate the building that was lost. That's the internal layout, and then that's just the elevations of the bin store that's located on the northern boundary of the site. There's some photographs just of the site as it stands at the moment. Obviously the building that was demolished has now been removed. That would have been sort of centrally located within the photograph on the top left. That photograph there is taken from my sort of best estimation as to where I feel the windows on Unit 6 would be located, and that's I'm trying to sort of replicate a view of what would be looking back towards the adjacent property, the Priory and its associated rear garden area, accepting that this photograph is taken obviously at ground level. Whereas you'll see in the report, the main sort of concerns related to overlooking and loss of privacy from the first floor windows to Unit 6. There's just some photographs taken from Union Street looking back into the site along the proposed, well, the existing access that would be used to serve the proposal. So just going on to the evaluation, the principle of the development is considered acceptable. Town centre location, and it's an acceptable form of infill development. Impact on heritage assets has been assessed. Considered there's been use of appropriate materials, design features from the original building in both the conversion and the new build elements. As I say, I did already mention it's a Burgess plot, so it's a linear building with access on one side, which is what we're trying to replicate with the new build element. Again, single aspect with the openings to the southern elevation, again to replicate that previous building. Residential amenity, again, as I just sort of touched on earlier, we accept that the new build element is not a direct like-for-like replacement. It is designed on the character and appearance of the building that was demolished. I accept that there would be a degree of overlooking, but consider that this would be mitigated by the condition that requires the obscure glazing of the windows of the first floor bedrooms on plot 6. Highway safety, it's considered that the existing access arrangements are acceptable, and in this instance there isn't an objection from the Highway Authority. The proposal also includes bin and cycle storage provision. As such, based on that and the submitted reports and the officer report, it's recommended the application is approved both in relation to the planning application and the associated listed building application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So if I could call Ward Councillor Tim Harrison, please, to speak. Thank you. You have 3 minutes and you'll be given a 30-second warning.
My name is Tim Harrison. I'm the District Councillor and the Town Councillor for this ward. I wish to make it known to everybody that I know both the contractor and the objector at this point. the reason for me calling this in was more as a mediator on this. I can see the need that we need for these properties to be there, but I can also see the need to protect the heritage of the priory that's already there, a very notable building in the middle of the town. I understand that the design of the 4 dwellings is based on the orientation, the design and the scale of the original buildings in the Burgage plot, and this was based on advice from the Conservation Officer. However, as we've just heard there from the officer, it's not a like for like, so we're not actually doing what we said. And the old Burgage buildings there didn't have doors and windows; they had big arch doors for carts and everything to drop the stuff off into the storage of the Burgage plot. So it's not a like for like. So at that point, it really is a bit mute in my concern. I was looking at maybe there was a possibility of reorientating the dwelling so the windows would face forward, but on speaking with the developer, that was an issue that would create issues with the parking at the front of the space. Mr. Gorman asks, has the Burgage understanding not already been compromised by what's happening with the new height of the build, as in not all of the Burgage buildings were 2 stories high, so they wouldn't have been looking over. I think the very end one was only 1 story high. And Mr. Gorman also asked that consideration is given to the safety aspects of egress of his property, as those who attended would have seen. There's that slight curved wall at the bottom of Mr. Gorman's drive. So could there be some sort of mitigation put in there, some sort of mirrors or something like that put in there to mitigate the safety of his children should they be going out on bikes? There's already a lot of traffic there. Could we put some sort of parking restrictions in place? I'm not sure what could be done, but I would urge that the committee looks to protect Mr. Gorman's privacy whilst allowing the development to go ahead and put the necessary mitigations in place, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions for Councillor Harrison? No? Mr. Michael Ellison, come forward to speak. Thank you. Thank you. You have 3 minutes and you will have a 30-second warning. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Just a quick introduction. I am an award-winning chartered architect of housing developments in listed buildings. I'm speaking largely for myself, but also for Mr. Gorman. Mr. Harrison has talked about the personal issues that Mr. Gorman is worried about, and I fully support them. When you decide whether or not to approve this application, I'll ask you to consider 2 critical issues, and if you're not happy with them, I request that you reject this application. Firstly, will this development be a satisfactory, sustainable environment for future families living there? In my opinion, it will not, and could have social problems in the future. The houses are family dwellings, not apartments as claimed in the application, and yet have no secure external space. If children wish to play outside, they only have the car park at the rear, where parents will not be able to see or supervise them. Children will be at risk of endangering themselves and property, and from strangers, as this site is open to all with no security. These houses have no outlook, no green space, just blank walls a few metres away. Now off the original footprint of the historical buildings and about 2 to 3 metres closer to the southern boundary. So the situation is far worse than the original scheme. This movement is theoretically to accommodate fire engine access. I say theoretically because the only access is usually blocked by parked cars in the no man's land that nobody owns, which is the site entrance. This could put lives at risk. This site is also likely to attract more illegal parking as it is not secured, so exacerbating the fire engine access. The second point is whether this project achieves sustainability and biodiversity targets to aid the Council's aspirations to achieve net zero. In my opinion, the answer is no on all counts for the following reasons. Councillor Harrison has mentioned the single aspect. These houses have all their windows, main rooms on the south side, so are likely to overheat without mechanical cooling, thereby increasing their energy and carbon load and therefore running costs. Now, condition 11, which has been proposed regarding to the overlooking, will not be enforceable because you cannot build bedrooms with no ventilation and no outlook, apart from which first floor windows to bedrooms have to be escape windows, therefore opening to a minimum size. The hard landscape that covers the whole site will generate excess heat from solar gain, exacerbating the urban heat island effect in the centre of town. There is no soft landscaping or tree planting to ameliorate this. This site will be a barren, very hot desert in the summer filled with cars. The development is an area of where provision of car parking is not a requirement yet. It is provided, requiring hard surfaces which could more usefully be used for soft landscaping and tree planting. This encouragement to use cars will not assist in reducing carbon, air quality or congestion and increasing the access problems.
Thank you. I think you've had your full 3 minutes and a bit, so, but thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Does anybody have questions, please, for Mr. Ellison? Councillor Ellis?
Thank you, Chair. You reference a no man's land area. I'm not sure where that is within the scheme of what we've been looking at. If you could just...
I think you could ask the officer that question in a little while, yes.
You're an architect, aren't you? Yeah, and obviously you don't like this scheme again. I'll just put it to you and you can answer me. Are you looking for the perfect scheme? Because obviously I can see the flaws in the scheme, but is it acceptable? It just seems to me, some of the things you said, I thought, yeah, ideally, that there's a difference between what you ideally like and...
Sorry. It depends what you mean by acceptable, because you're looking at, say, those windows there looking to the building opposite. That is what their outlook is, to a blank wall or scruffy railings around the RAF building.
Right. Thank you very much. We're meant to be asking questions of clarification, but thank you for answering anyway. Any more questions? So thank you very much, Mr. Ellison. Thank you. If we now have Mr. D. Chantry of Kirchen Limited, please, who's on behalf of the applicant. All right, thank you. You have 3 minutes and you will be given a 30-second warning. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Our original application was to take down the dangerous structures that was submitted to the Planning Department on April the 2023 and approved on August 2023. The design and access statement stated a further submission would be made to replace the structures taken down with two-bed new style houses. The application being discussed today is that submission. In the last year we have submitted and approved applications for urgent repair works undertaken to the main Grade 2 listed building and the conditional discharge applications relating to taking down the dangerous structures. Both have been completed to the SKDC's satisfaction. Our agent has also submitted 2 applications on behalf of the Almshouses Trust this year for the removal of trees and derelict garage block within their land, which has been completed. The main application was submitted in December 2023, and since registration date we have been involved in lengthy discussions with planning and conservation officers to revise the designs of both buildings and to their satisfaction. The designs presented to you are the agreed designs. All the other statutory consultees support the application, including Historic England, Heritage Lincolnshire and Highways Authority. The only objections to the application come from the Priory, the main one being overlooking. Less than a third of the southern elevation boundary abuts the Priory. The majority of our boundary abuts the cadet buildings. The brick boundary wall is over 3.1 metres high, blocking all ground level views. The Priory site is over 19 metres away from the majority of our replacement buildings. The actual dwelling is over 28 metres away, and there is a building and two boundaries between the replacement buildings and the Priory house. Unit 6 to the western side of the building is on the lower part of the site, and a brick boundary wall to the Priory is between 5 and 7.5 metres away. There is no overlooking issues. When we brought the site, it had stood derelict for a number of years. We have worked continuously over the last year to restore the site. Our proposal for 6 town centre dwellings is correct use for this site. Commercial and industrial development is clearly not appropriate where the existing surrounding properties are extensively dwellings. This application makes a constructive and practical use of the brownfield site, which was redundant and become both an eyesore and a health and safety hazard. If all the statutory consultees, the planning and the case officer support the application, we feel the correct decision is to approve the application and let us continue to improve the site. There we go. 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Finished in time. Anybody got any questions, please, for Mr. Chantry? Councillor Sawyer?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if there's time for him to answer this one.
Make it short.
Well, perhaps he can be selective. How do you address the objections that are made on pages 55 and 56? Oh, you haven't got a copy in front of you. I'm sorry. My apologies. I thought you had. A shorter question then. What percentage of the original brickwork and pan tiles are suitable for reuse?
We used most of
Sorry, can you put your...
The old building obviously had a fire in its past. It's quite a lot of it was replaced with London bricks. We've kept all the materials we can possibly keep. We've kept like the old 2-inch bricks, the old pan tiles, the old French pan tiles, some of the timber beams. We've kept anything we could keep. We keep because obviously we don't want to pay again. Yeah, if we can use obviously bricks are very expensive now. If we can keep every penny, we would.
I assume the old bricks were bonded with lime mortar.
The old bricks were rendered in sand and cement, unfortunately, and obviously well, it's ruined really because the sand and cement are just bonded to the face of the bricks. We couldn't even use the back side, in which case we have kept them, just in case we use some of them for headers, etc., etc. But we've kept as much as we can, mainly can. All lime mortar, yeah, everything's lime mortar. Yeah, when we've done all of it, every piece of work's just lime mortar when we've done it.
Thank you. It was a very comprehensive reply. Any more questions, please? No? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chantry.
Thank you.
So we need to move on to questions to our officer. I think maybe the main issue here is the amenity issue overlooking the Priory. I think that's one of the main issues, amongst others. If we'd like to discuss that one first, please, and just, well, not discuss it, maybe ask some questions, please. Thank you. No questions? Oh, Councillor Bellamy.
I'd just like to, just one clarification on the report, please, rather than a specific question. This is change of use, isn't it? As well. What was, I can't remember seeing it in the report. What was the original use for, or what was the designation of that particular land? We don't know.
Through you, Chair. I'd just say it was presumably associated with the with 35 itself. So I think that was originally a public house, but I would say it had some sort of sort of commercial use, I would suggest, be it storage or something along those lines, but certainly not residential.
Sorry, David, can you put your microphone?
So previously we can assume that it was designated as industrial then? Yeah. Sort of, yeah? Or warehouse?
I think possibly commercial because the
yeah.
Burgage plots at the rear of a commercial building
yeah,
would
so
have been used for.
Yeah,
I think there were some stables and storage and that sort of thing. Emma?
Thank you. I think probably, yes, some form of commercial use associated with, well, originally it would have been number 35. But just to clarify, the Burgage plot is the original medieval plan form for the plot, where you would have had the original building at the front. There have been very long linear plots, and you can see that on the map. Most of them have gone. And that's why it is important that we recognise and respect the existence, so you can still read that Burgage plot. So that's why the proposed development's laid out in that form, and that's just so that we can continue to understand and appreciate that this was once a Burgage plot. But the Burgage plot relates to the medieval layout and land form, and of course things have evolved over time. The buildings that were dropped weren't necessarily medieval in origin. It's the plan form of the Burgage plot that's medieval. Thank you.
Councillor Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, possibly one for Emma, I think. Emma, could you just briefly summarise the amenity issues that have been raised, or should we say the objections based on amenity?
Can I defer to Kevin? That might be better placed to answer as the case officer. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, it's principally in relation to on the plan there the purple element, which is the new build element. And if we look sort of directly due south of the furthest point of that is the Priory, which you can see annotated on the plan, and its associated garden area. The garden area of the Priory comes up northwards and butts up to the side, so it's almost like a wraparound curtilage. So it's overlooking a loss of privacy. I'm interpreting from the proposal, principally I think at first floor, in so much that you then have the potential to overlook over the boundary treatment into that garden area. Hence the suggestion that it's appropriate to have obscure glazing to the windows to the furthest most unit 6. So if I go to the elevations.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Just going to the elevations. There, it's the excuse me, the first floor windows at to the most, to the westerly most units, unit 6. They will be obscure glazed and retained as such thereafter to prevent any significant overlooking loss of privacy.
Who else? Sorry, their hand up. Was it Councillor Bird?
Thank you. Yes, just two things. One is in relation to the designation of the Burgage plot. Within our sort of policy and conservation requirements, are we permitted to allow new build on a Burgage plot? Because I'm aware of another situation where new build was disallowed because it was a Burgage plot, and I'm just sort of wondering if that has been a change. And separately, is there a requirement? Have we got biodiversity net gain with this property? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, my advice on this one has been that we are trying to reinstate, through the loss of the building, in so much that the Burgage plot is identified by, as Emma already mentioned, it's the long linear nature of the built form that sort of sat behind the host property that fronted onto Watergate. So the idea is, you're almost trying to reinstate that. I think there's an acceptance, yes, the building has gone, but you're trying to get some form back so that at least you can then see what used to be there historically. So you're trying to almost not replicate like for like, but you're trying to bear some resemblance to what was previously there. So I think that's the old driver behind it.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford?
Sorry, yeah, it's hard to determine on the plan that we've got, but I do have concerns about the parking and a turning circle to reverse, because it's hard to perceive how wide the access is, where people are going to park, how they're going to park. Is there enough turning space so they can turn round without having to reverse down all the way to the egress?
That's addressed to the case officer. Yes. Sorry.
Through you, Chair. So that's the obviously, yeah, a long linear access into the site, and then the parking would be predominantly along the northern boundary of the site. So, sorry, was your concern about vehicles meeting each other along the access, or? Yeah. Sweat pass for the vehicle. Yeah, I think we need to bear in mind it is a town centre location, so I think at the end of the day there is technically no requirement for parking. I think if we was to apply the policy along that basis, and I think we have done on other applications, but conversely I think sometimes members of the planning committee have accepted that there is always sometimes going to be a need for some parking on the site. You know, not every future occupier is going to be with no vehicle. So I think the idea was to almost strike a balance between the two and have a town centre location, but also with a degree of parking. The location for the parking spaces as well is very much driven by the sort of sweat paths for service and fire tender access. So the idea being to be able to get deliveries and emergency vehicles into the site. That's sort of forced the parking to be around the boundary of the site.
Councillor Crawford again, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate all of what you've said, but it hasn't confirmed, and I do get tired of people saying, oh, you don't have to have parking. 99% of the population has parking for a car. I don't care whether you're in town, in the country, majority have a car nowadays. But again, so if the refuse lorry goes up there, does it have to reverse all the way up, or is there enough room for it to turn? I cannot see and fathom out, and it might be me being thick and dense, I don't know, I'll leave that up to you. Is there enough room for a car to turn around so it can come out forward, or does the car or the vehicle have to reverse all the way down? That's the question I'm asking, thank you.
Through you, Chair. Just for clarity, the refuse vehicle wouldn't go into the site, it was fire tender access. Refuge would be brought out, 2 of the units would be out onto Watergate, the remainder would go out onto Union Street. So there's no refuse vehicle into the site. So it's to allow emergency vehicles to enter and leave, be able to manoeuvre into the site. I would suggest in the absence of an objection from the Highway Authority, there must be the ability to enter the site and leave in a Ford gear, otherwise they would have expressed concern and recommended refusal on highway safety grounds.
Any more questions? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. You have accepted and acknowledged that the design is not of a comparable size scale. My complete confusion is, can you not use the same footprint but reverse the houses so that you've got the windows facing north towards the car park? I mean, it seems, and I refer to what Mr. Ellison said, having your windows look out onto basically a brick wall seems a very unattractive option for us, whilst we could at the same time use the footprint but flip the houses to face a more attractive outlook.
Yeah, through your chair. Got some photographs there of the building that was demolished. So, hopefully you can see that the proposed design does try to replicate some of the openings that were all principally on that southern elevation and on the gable elevation. We've tried to get a feature in the gable end to sort of replicate what was on the original building. A burgage plot by default is linear in form and does tend to have the principal elevation facing its own axis rather than outwards, which would be the case if the openings were put in the northern elevation. It would be facing away from its own axis, and that's not really the character and appearance of a burgage plot. It is very much a single aspect looking at its own access arrangements rather than away from the site. So that's the reasoning why we've gone for the openings to be down the southern elevation to replicate the building that it's replacing.
Councillor Ellis again.
Sorry, I totally accept that, but you're not replacing like for like. You are replacing burgages with domestic houses, so the usage is completely different, and surely that has to be taken into consideration.
Thank you. I think I'm right in saying, correct me, is the conservation issue the direction that these windows are facing, even though it is a change of use to a completely different use that the, very old buildings were put to?
Yes, Chair. As I say, the photographs in front of us show the building that was demolished. So we have the gable end with a feature in it which we've tried to replicate as part of the new build, and the elevation we can see with the openings is southern facing. That's what we've tried to achieve with the replacement build. As I say, there we've got the southern elevation with the openings, and you can see on the gable end there we've tried to sort of replicate the features that were in the gable end of the building that's unfortunately lost.
Could you also, it was mentioned about relative lack of amenity space for these dwellings. Can you just point out where that will be? Is it private amenity space, or is it just a car parking space? So what is between the new houses proposed and the edge of the site to the, is it the south?
Yes, Chair. Yeah, it is a tight site, I accept that, and there is very limited opportunity for any amenity space. In fact, it's more or less given over to, as you say, parking and turning. The southern outlook is close to the boundary, but that's not a unusual relationship for sometimes in some quite tight town centre locations, as would be the case for the conversion of the existing buildings.
Councillor Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. In the year leading up to demolition, what was the site being used for?
Sorry, could you just repeat that? In the year leading up to demolition, did you say?
Yes.
What was the site used for?
What was the site being used for?
I think it was relatively derelict for quite some time because the building had gone into very severe disrepair. Obviously not used for very much. But in its day, I think it was stabling, coach house, that sort of thing at the back of the, what would have been the pub, and storage. But I don't think it's probably, I stand to be corrected, I don't think it's been used for a long time. Okay, so I think we'll move into debate on this issue. I still think some of the issues are around the amenity in several aspects. The first one I think we should probably look at is the amenity overlooking the children's area in the grounds of the Priory, which in itself is a listed building, and the orientation of those facades. We're being told that plot 6, which is the one that will overlook, will have obscure and non-opening windows in the upstairs windows, and that will mitigate any chance of overlooking. There could be questions around future occupants not being able to open those windows and ventilation. Is that?
If I can just quickly jump in on that one, the points raised by the speaker related to whether or not it would comply with the building regulations and safety, and whilst that's a perfectly reasonable concern to have, we need to leave that to the building regulations, so that if it doesn't comply with the building regulations, then it won't go, as it were, in terms of the construction. So just to jump in on that point.
Thank you, Chair. Just to provide a bit more clarity on the building regulations issue, I did have a chat with our building control team ahead of the sort of discussions about obscure glazing, non-opening windows. It can pass building regulations in so much that unfortunately, it's going to need mechanical means of ventilation. Speaker earlier on did raise issues about fire escape and opening windows in that respect. My understanding is that can be addressed by the layout of the building as such that there's actually sort of like a means of escape down the centre of the building where through the existing hallway and landing. There'd just be a need to require that to be fireproof, so appropriate fire doors, etc. So there would be a means of escape right through the core of the building rather than out through windows.
Well, thank you very much for getting that information and clarifying that. I think that was a bit of concern. So the main issue, I think, is the obscure glazing and the non-opening windows probably do overcome the overlooking element here. They are a certain distance away from the wall. It's quite a high red wall around the site. The other issue which we touched on was any amenity space, but these will be townhouses. You often don't get amenity space, I suppose. You'd sit in the car park, but it is in town. And I think it's important to highlight that this sort of change of use is supported by local and national policy in town centres. It's in the report, providing it doesn't cause harm or unacceptable impact upon the amenity of adjacent properties. So I think that's what we're looking at, whether we're satisfied with that solution or not. We have got the setting of the listed building to consider, but Conservation have not commented on that element. They've only commented on the impact on the actual building as being okay. And also, is it following to the extent we like the mass and form of the demolished and comparable footprint and the buildings before? There's obviously going to be change. It's going to be different use. It's got to be more modern. I think we could debate that. So to me, that's the main issue here. I think it's going to be a row of townhouses in a constrained site, but that's the town centre site. Councillor Bellamy.
Are we debating now?
Yes, we are,
oh,
apparently.
That's fine. Well, my opinion is that it's difficult to say what other development you could put in on that plot. I presume that because what was there was architecturally important, listed, whatever, it is important that it is replaced. But this also includes change of use, so I'm pretty sure that we probably wouldn't want to put commercial back in there, which it previously was. So the only thing that we could put in there really is dwellings. I think the other thing is the proximities and that, and the closeness to walls and stuff. Again, that's probably not unusual in a sort of Victorian type town like I think Grantham is predominantly, is that correct? Victorian, Georgian type thing. So, and like I say, it is pretty much, it does fairly, as best we can, replicate what was there as dwellings. And so it's a difficult one, but I can't think of any good reason to refuse it, to be honest. So,
thank you. Just switch your microphone off, please. Councillor Wood.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I agree. I can't think of really any reason to refuse it. It's a constrained site. It's in the middle of town. I think we're making with this, we're making the best use of the site, really. Townhouses, it's a derelict site. We're bringing it back to use. Well, actually, constrained car parking's a bit restricted, but at least there is some car parking. So generally, I'm in favour of it and happy to support the officer's recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor.
Complete agreement. And I see a derelict site that was used for nothing becoming a site providing housing for people. As for personal amenity, if someone buys a house, one of those houses, they know exactly what they're getting. I'm inclined to support it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bellamy.
Yeah, just bring it back into one of the arguments that was put forward about changing the aspect also. Now, if we wanted to change the aspect of it, we'd have to refuse this, yeah. I'm assuming, and then they'd have to come back with something else. But in the meantime, they're probably going to appeal. So I would guess that if this went to appeal, that we'd probably lose if all we'd done was refused it because of the aspects of the windows and that. Yeah. So I think I'll propose the application as it is and the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Sawyer? Yes, I think this is a tight town centre site, but it is replicating as best they can what was there before. Be a nice set of town houses and great demand in town centres. I think the amenity has been addressed, and so we can probably go to the vote then on just. Yes. Is there an extra condition as well on these, or was that a different one? No. So there are two applications here. There's the main application, and then the other one's the listed building element. We've obviously addressed both together. Is your proposal to approve both elements, both applications? And then we'll vote on the other. Okay? Happy?
2 votes then.
But 2 votes. So we'll vote on the first application first. So all those in favour of that. It was Councillor Sawyer.
Can we just clarify?
So it's the first one is S232364, the change of use, full planning permission. If we vote in favour of that. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then we'll take the second vote on the second application, which is reference S232365, the listed building element. It's already been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. We now move to the next application. Get myself. This is agenda item 7, application number S240828, Casterton Road in Stamford. We'll put that over to the Assistant Planning Officer, Craig Dickinson, to present to us, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, everybody. So this is application S240828, which is for loft conversion dormer windows and external alterations to number 46 Casterton Road, Stamford. So this here shows the site in its context. We've got number 46 hatched in pink. To the northwest we've got the nearest neighbour, which at 48, it's a little bit blurry, but just to the northwest is number 48, which is a single-storey dwelling, and to the southwest we've got number 44, which is a two-storey dwelling. This is on the corner of Casterton Road, and to the left side of the site there you can see is Little Casterton Road going up, and behind the site is Radcliffe Road, which has a small access point to the outbuildings serving the back of these dwellings and also the ones on Radcliffe Road. The existing dwelling is a sort of a 2.5-storey dwelling. Currently it has a large box dormer on the rear elevation. You can see there, so that bottom right drawing is the view from Little Casterton Road, and the south elevation, the top left, is the view from Casterton Road. And there's some existing floor plans to show the internal arrangement. We'll come back to that in a moment. So there it is highlighted within context. You can see there it's got quite a prominent location on that junction, but we'll just move from there. There's some site photography to show. So the photo on the left is the rear showing the existing box dormer, and the photo on the right is the view just from Little Casterton Road, viewing across the front garden of the adjacent bungalow to the side elevation there. The proposal is to largely remodel the roof, which does include a ridge raise of approximately 1.5 metres, replacement with new materials of zinc cladding, timber cladding, and the introduction of several new windows, including a first floor window, which you can see on the bottom right drawing there, facing westwards towards the front garden of the bungalow. It's the larger of the three on the bottom right on the first floor, and then obviously the higher levels on the second storey, which are bifolds with a timber balustrade. Includes dormer windows to the north as well, facing towards the rear garden and the parking area, and several other alterations and modifications like new windows at ground floor, but they're all in existing openings. Right, so, and that there shows the new internal proposed floor arrangement, which includes the first floor window I mentioned that was new would serve a bedroom, and the bifolding window up in the second storey would serve a snug. And there's a 3D mock-up provided by the agent to illustrate. We did have some concerns expressed in terms of intervisibility, particularly between number 48, which is the single-storey dwelling to the west. We were provided with visibility displays to show the interaction within the 45-degree rule. It has been assessed as being compliant largely with that. However, conditions have been recommended in the interest of amenity that that window that the orange display is coming from still be obscure glazed, as it serves a bedroom, which is a primary habitable space. It's important to note as well that we had to consider the possibility of if the adjacent property does undertake any extant planning permission, which would allow it to become a full two-storey dwelling, which was approved in 2021. We've considered this in the report, both if it remains as a single-storey dwelling or if it was to be built out as per the plan there. So the right-hand drawing there is an illustration showing the approximate height in relation to this if the bungalow was extended in the same form as approved. So the key issues were primarily neighbour impacts through overlooking or perceived overlooking as a result of the new windows on the west elevation, and similarly the impact on the character and appearance of Casterton Road through the increase in height and contemporary design, particularly with the raised levels of the site and the prominent corner location. However, following a full assessment, subject to conditions for obscure glazing on the west elevation at first floor for that bedroom window, and a secondary condition which I'll cover in a moment, we found that we assessed that there would be no unacceptable loss of privacy to neighbours. Similarly, the design itself, Casterton Road has been subject to quite a few contemporary designs. There's a mixed bag in terms of palette, and the overall design we felt was an enhancement over the character of the existing dwelling and would not be out of keeping with the area. So the recommendation was to authorise that the committee grant this permission. The addendum, which was, I believe, passed around just at the beginning of the meeting, was a correction to condition 6, which is on page 94. The condition erroneously refers to a glass balustrade. It should say a timber balustrade, and it is to retain that balustrade so that it acts as a obscuring feature at second floor level. So if I scrub back a few slides, it's clear there. So on the bottom right drawing, there's a balustrade you can see above those the second floor windows. It's that they are kept in perpetuity and would need permission to be removed or altered another way. It's just a point of clarity on that, but that's everything I have there, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll just ask something for clarification. Of the officer, it's just that one of the slides, if you weren't on the site visit, it's probably not absolutely clear. But the overlooking is overlooking the front part of the garden rather than the rear part of the garden, and I think that is useful to know, as you know, if you haven't been on the site visit. I think I'm right in saying that, Craig, aren't I?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that is correct. So it's these concerns that were expressed and that we've tried to address with conditions are affecting the front garden of the adjoining neighbour property.
Yes, I think we can discuss that a bit later on. There's a few things we need to just discuss on that. Thank you for pointing that out, David. Councillor Harish Bisnal Singh has sent a statement to be read out. He can't be here, unfortunately.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members of the Planning Committee, I'm concerned with this application and its effects on the privacy and the general visual amenities of the area. This development is not in keeping with the character of the area in the conservation area of the town. It will have a negative impact in the area due to the large black windows which are excessive in scale, and it would be very dominant. Therefore, in my opinion, I feel this development would give harm to the setting of the Stamford Conservation Area. I also feel that it is not compliant with our local plan policy, DE1. The height being 1.2 metres higher than the current building, which would cause harm to both the character of this site and the surrounding area, due to its height and proposed material being used, and the high level prominent dark windows that will cause harm to the neighbours' privacy and residential amenities. Also, the visual impact by the virtue of the building being located on higher ground, which will enhance the overbearing character of the building and will not be appropriate for the location. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could call Kenneth Mills to come and speak to us. Do you hear? Oh. Does he need it? Thank you very much, Mr. Milnes. You have 3 minutes and a 30-second warning to say.
I'll do my best. It's on now, yeah. As I say, Kenneth Mills. I live next door to the proposed changes. The site is set within buffer zone of Stamford Conservation Area. A direct quote from SKDC's Conservation Officer's comments, dated 12th of June 24. Inadequate procedure. The submitted application form is significantly misleading and factually incorrect, stating that proposal aims to remove the existing roof and replace it with a new roof that shares the same form, scale and pitch as the existing roof. However, submitted plans illustrate an approximate increase in the roof height building by 1.35 metres, meaning that the application form and consultation papers are inaccurate. Impact upon the character of the area and residential amenities. These are key concerns with this application, and it is felt that the development comprises a much increased scale, visual dominance and physical dominance. Reports suggest that the development is of a lesser scale, however the proposal is unsuitable and out of keeping in design. The overall development comprises a sizable increase in ridge height to the dwelling to incorporate proposed dormer windows. The first floor includes the study windows. We anticipate that the study would be a home office. Anybody standing would have full view into our lounge window, our front garden, where we sit and enjoy the view, plus side entrance to our property, which is our preferred easy access to our bungalow. On the second floor, overlooking will occur from a standing position via the run of full height windows and bifold doors opening onto a Juliet balcony. There must be a health and safety issue here. Again, all overlooking from a standing position and would occur into our back and front gardens, lounge and side entrance. The overall extent of the build form remains unacceptable and evidently an unacceptable form of the development. The increased roof height and dormer windows results in an additional bulk of build form which within close proximity and introduces our new windows, causing more prominent and direct overlooking to our property, which itself comprises a much smaller bungalow in its current form, further emphasising its potential dominance. The visibility displays are limited and selective in their assessment and fail to reflect the resultant overlooking and perceived loss of privacy as expressed within the local planning authority's previous refusal reason. The proposal also contravenes the Council's own SPD guidance, extensions guidance as outlined within Extensions to Dwellings SPD, which highlights numerous criteria relating to dormer windows. This proposal fails to comply with the large majority of these criteria. The extent of impact on us, the residents of number 48, and the impact on the character goes significantly beyond, but I hope this provides sufficient guidance on its unacceptable nature.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mills. You've had more than your 3 minutes, I'm afraid, but we've got the message. Thank you very much. There is a chance that councillors can ask you some questions of clarification, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Anybody to ask any questions of Mr. Mills? Councillor Sawyer?
If the roof height were reduced, how would you view it then?
If the roof height was reduced, what we are mainly concerned about is the visual impact of the windows on that west front, which when people stand close up to windows, you can see right down, you can see to the right to our rear gate, to our back door, you can see left to the front garden, all the way down, and more importantly, straight into our lounge where we sit each day. And that's the important thing to us. The high level is not quite so important to us, but obviously it does give a more demanding sort of overlooking feature, which...
So it's the intrusive nature of the...
Councillor Sawyer, could you put your microphone on, please? And Mr. Mills could turn yours off, thank you.
Microphone, Chair, so it's the intrusive nature of the windows that your main objection.
Can I just clarify, Mr. Mills, when we were on the site visit, we noticed you were sitting in your bay window, which seemed to be getting a lot of sunshine. Is that your main amenity area, your front garden?
It is, yes. When the afternoon sun comes round, we like to sit, so we've got it facing the road in front. We can watch the world go by, and we get the sun. And we do sit there, especially in the summer months and spring.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else any questions for Mr. Mills? No, well, thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you. So if I can call Elizabeth Belisle, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, and Neil Needham, are you coming together? One speaking. So I hope I have pronounced your surname correctly. Oh, good, thank you. So you have 3 minutes to speak and you'll have a 30-second warning.
So, good afternoon, thank you very much. I'm Elizabeth Belisle. This is my husband Neil Needham. We together are the applicants and owner of the house, 46 Casterton Road. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the house as we bought it last year when we took possession in February 23. Very much the 1967 design that it is. From the front, needs a bit of care, but not bad, is well balanced. What we can't see from that angle is that it has had 3 extensions, next slide please, that I've not considered the design so much. So top left we can see there are 2 ground floor extensions, and in all 3 of them we can see the glorious continuous box dormer conversion, which converted our house into a block of flats. And that appearance is our key design objective. That is what we want to address. That's what we see every day when we arrive. We like contemporary architecture, and so our first application last year was very modern in its outlook. As you know, that was rejected earlier this year. Following that, we fully took on board the feedback that we got, including the objections from our neighbours on both sides, and we went back to the drawing board with our architects. Next slide, please. We wanted to get it right, and so we put a pre-planning application in and worked collaboratively with Mr. Dickinson here through our architects to produce something that is a lot more traditional. In fact, the conservation officer said that it now incorporates material reflecting the wider streetscape and in keeping with the appearance of the general streetscape. The Stamford Town Council officer commended us for mitigating the design of the previous application. The planning officer in his report stated that it would be beneficial to the character of the dwelling in the area because it's more balanced. In summary, we think that working in collaboration with the planning department has paid off, and we now have a scheme that improves the existing poor design of the property. Next slide, please. Yes, we are increasing the ridge height by 1.095 metre. There seems to be a lot of different numbers. That's the number. About this. Next slide, please. And yes, we are proposing windows on the western elevation. We also enjoy sunsets, but there will be a very big, deep wooden balustrade combined with a recessed window at a height of 1.1 metre, which means we will not be able to look down. We will not overlook our neighbours' private amenities. Next slide, please. In fact, we will see less than we currently do because that is our current view from the window at the back into the kitchen, the side door and the back garden. That window will disappear. Thank you. Next slide, please. So, in summary, I hope that you will approve with us and the officers that the new design is an improvement on the current one, and we hope that you will approve our application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you could, thank you. Are there any questions, please? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. So if we move to questions to the officer, please. I think there's 2 issues, isn't there? There's the privacy or overlooking issue and the height and design. So if we have any questions or clarification, please. Councillor Wood.
Clarification, Madam Chairman. I was just a bit confused. I think I've got it right. I thought Councillor Harris-Miss-Nothing said it was in the conservation area, but the conservation officer says it's not. Is it? Could you just clarify whether it is or it isn't, please?
Thank you. No, it's a good question. So it's not within it. The closest point of this site to the closest edge of the Stamford Conservation Area is 75 metres on the survey map. So, but that's, as the crow flies, it's about 100 metres down from Castleton Road, from the edge of the conservation area. So we did consult with Conservation, who didn't object to it. But I felt that the location was relatively minimal impact on the conservation area because of that distance alone, let alone the design.
Can you just clarify, please, again? I do believe it's in CA4, the character area for Stamford in the neighbourhood plan. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. It's in section 1.5 of the report.
Mm-hmm. So does that clarify for it? Okay, thank you. Councillor Sawyer?
I didn't take part in the site visit because I'm very familiar with the area. It's my walking route into the town centre from home, and I've done that any number of times. Castleton Road is very diverse in terms of the houses that are along it. They range from 1960s to perhaps the latter part of the last.
Can I just? Are you asking a question?
I am, yes. Am I right that? Well, I think I know I am. Permission was given for the demolition of a building of a house further down Castleton Road and its complete replacement with a new one fairly recently. So there is, in a sense, a precedent there for approving modernisation.
Thank you. I think you're referring, I believe the property is now known as High Lodge. So that's actually within the Stamford Conservation Area as well. So there was even leniency on material palette there because it was found to be still appropriate. So yeah, there is very much an established precedent along Castleton Road of this kind of development.
Thank you. Councillor Wood? Or have you asked? Was it Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just a clarification. You said there was two issues. One here was the height of the gable, and but we've just had that taken out by the gentleman that was objecting. He said that wasn't an issue really for him. It was the actual. So really, all we should be considering today is the privacy issue. I would have thought.
Yeah, the privacy issue, as far as Mr. Mills is concerned, I think the height issue was to do with the character of the area. So. I think that's the difference, not so much the impact on him. Any more questions, please? Councillor Bellamy?
I think on the site visit as well, correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, that the land behind the proposed development raises up anyway, and so the properties behind are even higher. So it sort of makes this one look not quite as probably as bad as you'd think.
I think you're right. I think on the site visit it was quite eye-opening, wasn't it? The steepness of the land there and the height going backwards as well, going up and up. So I think I'm right in saying it's all steps going up there. Is that correct?
Thank you. It's exactly correct. It steps up to the front door of the site and steps up along the back garden as well. There's quite a steep slope all the way up to Radcliffe Road, which are then two-storey dwellings elevated over both of these plots, this and the neighbour as well. So there's very much an existing interrelationship of high levels looking below, and these properties are elevated above the other side of Castleton Road to the south also, so it continues downhill. But yeah, it sort of wraps up either towards both Little Castleton Road and Radcliffe Road.
I'd just like some clarification, please, on your 45-degree angle diagram. I noticed the window in the bungalow you'd kept as a flat window, whereas actually it's quite a big bay window where the occupants sit a lot. Could you show how that might impact on that angle?
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid, obviously, I didn't prepare the drawing. It's an indicative one from the agent. But the concept was to just show the general, with the distance being around about It's annotated as 11 metres. I'd estimate it a little lower, but more around 10. But with the distance there and the angle from that proposed first floor bedroom window is what I was trying to illustrate. I'm afraid it's not letting me scrub back. Oh, it is now. Sorry. Let's just go back to that slide. So that there is showing a 45-degree splay from the proposed first floor bedroom window. That's actually been conditioned as condition 4, I think it was, to be obscure glazed. So the actual outlook from that window is effectively muted by that condition. This was just indicative as part of the process and isn't a conditioned approved plan.
So the angle from the balcony windows, which are the point in issue here, how does that compare?
Just allow me 1 second. So on the proposed, unfortunately I don't have a second floor plan illustrated in relationship, but it's very much the same internal, let's say the actual format of the building is the same upper floor, but the bifold windows would have effectively the same, but then you have the increased height, which, as the speaker, Mr. Mills, did raise, obviously there is a perception of overlooking. That is something that is always going to be the way with a window facing another property, but the actual realistic viewing angle afforded by it is very small, and you would have to effectively crane to look downwards into the front garden of the site and to the front windows. But yeah, it's an indicative splay just to show that general relationship. I think that has actually drawn possibly the first floor of next door. I don't think that's the ground floor that's illustrated on 48, because I think it's first to first shown there. But then I think the bay is very lightly annotated below it. So there is an interrelationship, but not one that we felt was unacceptable.
Yes, thank you, Emma.
I think what we've also got to bear in mind when considering the impact that this will have, and there will be an impact because any development that we approve will have some form of an impact because it will change what we're looking at. It will change something about the locality. Is that it's the neighbour's property? It's their front garden. It's their front room. That clearly they spend a lot of time in, and that's very important to them. But the Zodiac, those that went out, I think it was the site visit, wasn't there? So anybody who went out on the site visit will have seen this, that the Zodiac's agree of overlooking, certainly from the street, into that front garden area. Their private garden space is to the rear of the property. So we just have to compare existing to proposed, and is that significantly harmful to the point that we're uncomfortable with the proposal? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Could you confirm whether the windows at the top, where the balustrade is, are they full-length bifold windows, or are they half? I think it is important because I think we all know if we have full-length windows with a balcony, we're more likely to sit close to the balcony rather than if it's just half. I'm not asking because I think it's important. I think it has an impact.
Yes, Craig, can you answer that?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have a section drawing to illustrate it, but it is earmarked in the design and access statement as being floor to ceiling.
I think, can you clarify just how close that balustrade is to the windows? Is it something people can walk out onto? Is it a balcony?
Thank you, Chair. It's not a walkable balcony in any sense. There was an illustration, I believe the 3D model shows it quite well. It's a little bit further back. There we go. So the cladding on the outside, I don't know if, yes, the mouse is visible. So the cladding actually would project slightly from the gable end, and then the balustrade itself would be just set within that cladding sort of section. So it is attached to the outside wall, but it's not a steppable balcony. There's no floor space beyond the bifolds that you could step and then and use that way. It's a Juliet-style balcony, for want of a better term. It's probably not the perfect term, but roughly covers it.
So more of a safety feature, would you say? And also does block lower down looking out of those windows. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's 1.1 metres from the floor level of that room, so that's pretty decent for safety purposes. And again, the height combined with the angle, even though it is hit and miss post, actually does lead to quite a large amount of visibility from the window being blocked out. If you were to try to look downwards, and obviously in any situation with a window, if you were to lean out of it, you can look downwards, but in this it would actually address, in my opinion, the majority of the overlooking issues from that window.
Thank you. Councillor Bellamy?
Just to confirm that one of the ones that we're talking about, the full-length ones, they're obscured glazing as well, aren't they?
I think Craig's going to say no. I think it's the ones below are obscure glazing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the first floor window is obscure glazed, and the if I go to sorry, it's not on the screen. In the bottom right drawing, the top left window there, that's also covered by the same balustrade, that is to be obscure glazed. It's serving a landing, but they've already marked that themselves as being obscured.
Councillor Bird?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just while we're on the sort of the windows, the relationship to the bungalow is obviously a concern, and that's been raised. With all the what appear to be extra windows, is there any perceived impact on any of the other neighbours in terms of behind or to any side or to across the road? You know, is there any other sense that these extra windows or these bigger windows could be interesting to other neighbours?
Thank you. That's a fair question. So the part of the previous refusal was the east elevation there, which is the top right drawing, originally had windows facing into the rear garden of number 44 to the southeast. That was a serious concern at the time for that decision. That as part of the amended scheme, that's why that's been removed. The windows to the rear, which are the top left, the two box dormer windows there, they are replacing those windows. So you can see at the back on the top left drawing, those windows are already in situ, so very much the same physical relationship with the properties to the rear. So you have no windows to the east, the same types and height of window to the rear, and then the new ones which we've had to address with condition to the west, and then the front windows on the bottom left. We did have, in the report, there is some comments from a neighbour on the opposite side of the road also. However, the separation distances, I believe, are in excess of 50 metres. Let me just check that number. I have that here. Sorry, I have one number I didn't write down, but I believe it was about, put it this way, it's over both the verge, then the double carriageway, sorry, double two-sided highway, and then the verge, and then the next property front garden, so all the way across. So on all sides, with the exception of the west elevation, the impact is effectively the same, and then we've had the conditions for the west. Thank you.
And I think we can confirm that one side of the large windows is going up the stairs, isn't it? It's not a room as such. And then the other side, towards the front, is a dressing room, and that's classed as a habitable room, is that correct? Yeah. And the mitigation is the balustrade, and the height in itself can mean you're looking over as opposed to down. Okay. But I think we can move to debate this. I think just going back to the character area of Stamford, which had a couple of nice quotes, it says individual designed houses with varied and textured townscapes. So there's quite a lot of scope there. Buildings typically two-storey, preserve human scale and sense of domesticity. But we've already mentioned the site itself is on a very steep slope going up, which helps to offset the height going further back. So that addresses the character of the area, and we can discuss that. And the other important question is the amenity of the perceived or the overlooking into the neighbours' front and garden and their bay window, which they obviously use quite a lot. So if we could start that debate, please, and then we'll take a proposal. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. like many of them here, we visited the site. While I sympathise with the gentleman who lives next door, actually walking around the site, I don't feel that there is going to be that much more of an impact with these windows there. I could quite clearly see, walking around the front and through the front garden, all over the property as it is now. If you walk out the back, I could clearly see into the back garden and everything else because of the steps all out the back. So while I sympathise with what he's saying, I feel that the overlooking is really no more than it is already at the moment. I think aesthetically this is going to be far more pleasing than what it is at the moment. Far better looking building. So I'm of a mind to propose that we agree this plan. Thank you.
Councillor Bellamy. Oh, Councillor Bird, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Yes, in terms of the additional height having any impact on the area, would this be as it's already 3 stories, would this be the tallest domestic property in that area, do we know? Are we setting a precedent for other future developments? I have to say it's certainly an improvement on the existing, so I'm not, but I'm just thinking in terms of the additional height, as the majority are 1 or mostly 2-storey. This is already 3-storey and now plus another metre. Would that make it the tallest? Would that create a precedent?
I stand to be corrected. I'll ask Craig that if he knows.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I suppose height is relative. It may be the tallest of the 3 that's with the immediate neighbours, but taking the levels behind to Radcliffe Road, for example, those would still be far above it in height because of the levels, the ones behind. And as Little Casterton Road slopes upwards, obviously there will be a point where they exceed the height. It will have, we have acknowledged that because the adjacent property is single-storey, that there is that. That increase will inevitably result in an increased bulk, but I think we've taken that the loss of the box dormer makes it more of a proportional height to itself, if that makes sense. But it will be the tallest in the immediate vicinity, but it already is pretty much at that point because of its corner high location.
Thank you, Craig. Does that make sense, Pam? We saw it on the site visit. The slope does make a huge difference, and the houses at the back, whilst they're 2-storey, are higher up still on land levels. And I think the bungalow next door does have a permission to, I think Craig showed a picture, to be almost comparable in height if it was to be built. Councillor Bellamy?
Yeah, on the site visit, I think everybody would agree that this has got to be about the most ugly house on Casterton Road, and that it was, and that it is. Well, I personally think it's a massive improvement. I think there would be more concern of the overlooking, I think, if it was the back garden rather than the front garden. Although I take on board what the speaker said about they sit out the front. But because of the angles that the houses are set at on the corner of Little Casterton Road, like I say, it's not. The overlooking's more towards the front aspect. I think the height difference, I don't think that's going to make that much difference at all, because obviously as the roof peak gets higher and higher, it gets narrower and narrower. So I personally don't think that will make much difference at all. And overall, I think it'll just be a massive improvement. So I'm quite happy to second Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. Any more comments? Councillor Sawyer?
I was just going to also offer to second Tim's proposal.
Okay. We do have the amended condition on your late papers here, just correcting that it's a timber balustrade on the western elevation. So are you happy proposing it with that amended condition? Yeah. Anybody else any comments to make before we go to a vote? So It's been proposed to accept and seconded to accept this with the amended condition number 6. All those in favour? That was unanimous, so that is approved. Thank you very much. We're just going to have another quick 5-minute break, just to help the officers as well as ourselves, so thank you. Extending the meeting, we've just about had our 3 hours. It won't be for very long, I would say, either till the end of business or 30 minutes is more than enough. So can we just have a show of hands on extending the meeting? Thank you very much. Okay, so agenda item 8, application number S240795, change of use and conversion of the former bank building to public reception and function rooms for the adjacent Angel and Royal Hotel. So I'll hand over to our Principal Development Management Planner, Adam Murray, to give the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So as you say, this next item is S240795 and it is an application for the change of use and conversion of the former bank building to an ancillary public reception and function room for the adjacent hotel, and the address is 6 High Street in Grantham, and the application has been referred to committee due to the applicant being related to a councillor. So the application site, as I say, is 6 High Street, which is identified as a positive unlisted building next to the Grade 1 listed Angel and Royal Hotel within the Grantham Conservation Area. The building itself was formerly used as a bank, which was operated by Halifax, but has since been vacated. The application proposes the change of use to form additional reception and function rooms for the Angel and Royal Hotel. The works required would be internal only, and there are no external alterations proposed. So just plans on the screen here for members just to show the changes in terms of the additional space being provided in terms of function rooms and reception rooms for the hotel. In terms of the evaluation of the scheme, it's considered that the change of use to provide additional hotel accommodation is acceptable in principle. It would provide the optimum viable use for an unlisted building within the conservation area, and because the works are internal only, there would be no harmful impact on the character and appearance of the area, and it's considered as no harmful impact on residential amenity. Just to advise members, we have received a comment from the local MP which has identified a query from a member of the public relating to disabled access. That is something that would be addressed through separate measures such as building regulations, so it doesn't alter the recommendation being made to committee today, which is to authorise the Assistant Director of Planning to grant planning permission subject to the conditions listed within your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We could ask Dean Harrison to come and speak, please. Thank you. You have 3 minutes and you'll have a 30-second warning. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, the reasons I believe the planning application should be allowed are the following. We don't currently have enough capacity in our food areas to cater for the increased demand since I bought the hotel refurbished and opened 3 years ago. As the hotel is Grade 1 listed, it's proven more or less impossible to find a solution to getting people with mobility issues up to our only function room, as you have no lift. And even we're allowed to put one in, I would lose either hotel bedrooms or a cocktail bar in order to do it. And even then, there'd always be a step up into the function room anyway. This affects the wedding trade I'd like to have, wakes and indeed any sort of function that has anybody with limited mobility attending. There's obviously not wish to exclude those guests, nor should it be expecting them to. Obviously buying the Halifax, it's got quite a massive ground floor area, so that solves the problem really. We can do weddings and functions as well as all day dining. And I think that, buying the Halifax was the only way to increase our volume of food and drink.
And with the last few years of increases in everything from wages to gas, electric and huge food and drink buying cost increases, profits have been squeezed, and it's important to me, important not just to me, that the Angel and Royal is a viable business, but actually to Grantham, I feel. As young as I feel, I will not be here forever, unfortunately, and it needs to be in good shape financially as a business in order to attract somebody else to take it on after me and secure its ongoing long-term viability. Also needs to be in good shape as a building with regular ongoing investment needed due to its age. And both of these can only happen through increasing volume of food and beverage, which in turn gives me the profits to invest back into the business. Apart from the business aspect, the fact is that the Halifax did unfortunately close, and as a building has its limitations with regard to who might be interested in taking it on. To me, it made perfect sense to expand my business, and at the same time ensure it didn't just become one more unoccupied building on the high street, with no business rates being paid and nobody being employed locally inside. I expect we'll generate another 15 to 20 jobs on top of the 45 already employed at the Angel. And with all this in mind, I hope you'll agree that my plans to refurbish it and add it to my existing business should be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, Councillor Sawyer?
Not a question, Chairman. Given there are no representations in the minutes, and if there are none today, could I propose we move straight to a vote on this one?
Just one moment. Could you put your microphone on?
Thank you. I think we probably just need to wait to see if there's any other questions potentially, and then we can go into that debate proposals. But just to clarify that, as Adam had sort of mentioned, we didn't receive any representations, but I have just received notification via the MP that there is the question about whether there's any disabled access. So to be right and proper, and I think the applicant's probably answered it through his public speaking, but to be right and proper and clear about the representations that we have had, that is a comment that has come to the local authority. It's not an objection, it's just a comment and question, really. So just as long as you, just to clarify on that, because yeah, thank you.
So thank you. If you don't mind, we'll just go through the procedure and do that. So is there any more questions to the applicant? No? Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Do we have any questions to the officer? No. And in debate, does anybody want to say anything or propose? I think Councillor Sawyer is proposing approval. Is that correct? Councillor Bellamy?
Well, just one comment I'd like to make. I don't mind seconding Councillor Sawyer, by the way. When you look at the plans of the frontage of this, what's the existing building onto the high street, and then you look at the mess that's been made in the 60s and probably in the 70s as well of the rest of the high street on the eastern side. Like I say, that is an amazing frontage building, like I say, and it's good that it's being brought back into use, and I fully support the officer recommendation. So I'm quite happy to second it.
And Councillor Crawford?
You stole my thunder there, Councillor Bellamy. I was going to say that the loss of a bank is very sad because that was an amenity for all, but aren't we fortunate that the location of the Halifax was next door and that he is able to take that building on, bring it back, bring life to the high street and jobs. So I have no problem in thirding this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
Yeah, just say excellent proposal, fully support it, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Ellis?
Just my bit in as well. I totally support it, and I think it would be a major benefit for the town.
Well, I think I concur with all that. I think it's an excellent opportunity that's been grabbed and will do us a good service in Grantham. So I think we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous approval. Thank you very much. We now go to the final application, Agenda 9, S240940. And I think we're handing over to our Conservation Officer, James Adam, to present this for us.
Thank you, Chair. So this one is application number S240940. It's 15 Swinegate, and it's the conversion of 3 redundant ground floor ancillary rooms to the rear of the property to a guest bedroom with an ensuite. This is where the site is on Swinegate. It's towards the north, and it backs onto the car park on Watergate. 15 and 15A are Grade 2 listed, and it's in the medieval town centre character area of the Grantham Conservation Area. That block you can see from, well, until the next gap going south, they're all listed at Grade 2, and it forms quite an attractive frontage along the road. So these are photos of the site. As you can see at the front there, it's quite Georgian, and then that's the rear of the site where this application is focused on. So the bottom left you can see is the proposed doorway that they want to reopen and introduce a timber door, and then that archway or opening in the interior is going to be infilled with a stud wall to create that separation, which is demonstrated further here with these plans. So we're looking at the effects proposal on the character and appearance of the conservation area, the potential impacts upon the building, its setting, and any special architectural or historic interest, and then any benefits associated with this proposal. Yeah. So I've set out in the report about what I viewed on this. I believe that the introduction of a timber door will be an improvement to the listed building, and the impact on the conservation area is not in the public highway, so it's going to be quite minimal, but it will still preserve and enhance the listed building and provide improvements to the Grantham conservation area. So I recommend that the Assistant Director approves the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We don't have any speakers, so any clarification questions to the Conservation Officer? No? Any thoughts in debate on this application? You just picked the post, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. To bring it back into use and life has got to be better than what it is now, so I have no issues and I'll quite happily propose that we accept this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis?
As you say, she put me to the post, so I'm happy to second that.
We have a proposer and seconder. Anybody else, any comments to make? So we have a proposal to approve this. Can we all move to that vote? Okay. That's unanimous, so that is agreed. So thank you very much. There's no further business, so I will close the meeting at 4:30, and thank you all for your time. Thank you.